States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will start, as always, with public comment. I will take any public comments not related to the Stevens Estate. We'll hold Stevens Estate public comments to that portion on the agenda. Do we have any other public comments? Okay, moving on. We have our minutes from the May 28th meeting. What do you guys?
Move the Board of Selectmen approve the opening session minutes of the May 28th, 2019 as presented.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. I'm going to take one consent item out of order because we have someone here who needs to get to another meeting, which is the appointment of Amy Maxner, our Conservation Minister, as the project manager to apply for the land grant program for the Glenny Woodlot property. I think we have Vanessa Johnson Hall from the Essex County Greenbelt here. Great, thank you. Maybe, Vanessa, you could give us a couple of words, if you don't mind, about the grant process.
Sure. Vanessa Johnson Hall with the Essex County Greenbelt Association. As you all know, at town meeting authorized the town to spend CPA funds to acquire the Glenny Woodlot property for $250,000. $50,000 of that will be fundraised by Greenbelt and given to the town for the purchase of the Glenny Woodlot. Greenbelt also offered to help the town apply for a local acquisitions for natural diversity grant from the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. So we're in the process of drafting that grant right now. That grant, if it's awarded, would reimburse the town up to 60% of the purchase price, which would be $150,000 of the $250,000 purchase price. So we're hoping that ends up being the case. Part of the requirements of the land grant are that the town appoint a project manager who is authorized to submit the grant on behalf of the town. So there actually has to be a letter signed by the chair of the Board of Selectmen that says we authorize. In this case, we're suggesting Amy Maxner. Typically, it is the conservation agent or conservation administrator who acts as the project manager, who would be, and I'd be giving her the majority of the materials needed for the grant.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Vanessa?
Madam Chair, I'll motion that we, Board of Selectmen, appoint Amy Maxmer, Conservation Administrator, as project manager to apply for a land grant for the Glenny Woodlot property.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I appreciate you taking it on.
Okay. Now we will go back to our normal order. The next item is a public hearing on National Grid poll petition for 3 Berkeley Road. Do I hear a motion?
Can you just sign this so I can get it?
Yes.
You need a motion to open the public hearing, is that what you want, or?
Yes, please.
Motion to open the public hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are in a public hearing. Do we have it? Oh, thank you.
Sorry about that.
Hey, guys.
How you doing?
Introduce yourself. And
Sure. So my name's Chris Wellington. I'm the lead program manager for the underground residential replacement of primary cable. This is one of my projects that I have slated for this year. This is Dave Boucher. He's an engineer with National Grid as well. And so tonight we have a petition before you to accept these plans which we've submitted. What we're doing is we're replacing a pre-existing electric system. It's a primary cable system that is getting towards end of life. There's some reliability issues out there, and before we find ourselves having extensive cable faults and outages, we want to be proactive and begin replacing this cable with a conduit system. And that's what this project is to install a conduit system where we would then be able to pull in primary cable and cut over from the old direct buried cable to this new existing system. So I know there's a lot of concerns. It's not something that we take very lightly. We understand that it's a large disturbance to the town because of the streets and the public way that's disturbed, the lawns and such, and even driveways when we make our way down the street. And we recognize that, and we'll do everything in our power to restore the area as best as we can. And I'm associated with the project, and I'll give my name out. I have cards, I have phone numbers, emails, very readily accessible. We send a letter out with my name on it, so people can reach out to me if they have an issue, and I can get back to them and address the issue. So if there's any questions about the plans or the project, I'd be glad to answer them.
Yeah, one question. So when are you thinking to start, and what would be the duration of the project?
So we want to start as soon as possible. We're looking to start around the 10th of June, and we're looking at about 2 months.
2 months?
2 months before we're finished.
And how many lawns, et cetera, would you be disrupting, do you think?
When I looked at the project, there's about 25 lots that we'll be crossing in front of. So we're only on one side of the street. We're not on both, so we're in one or the other.
And you're not crossing the street at all? It's all on one side? It's gonna be right on one side.
There is I think there's 2 road crossings, but they are in portions of the street that haven't been recently paved. We did meet with the DPW director and the town engineer, and they were concerned about that section of Berkeley that had recently been paved, and they requested that we not cross that section. So we did alter our plan, so we stayed on the same side of the street where the riser pole is in the very beginning of the project down towards Route 114. And then we're going to stay on that side, and we're going to be mostly in the sidewalk. There is going to be some lawns disturbed. But the DPW director, he said, we're going to pave that area. So instead of going down a lawn, why don't you go out into the edge of the street? Because we're going to be paving within a year or two. We're going to be redoing rock at the end of the season, and then I think the rest of Berkeley next year. So I said, okay, we can do that. So that's what we're going to do, just to try to not have that type of disturbance on people.
So when you say you're going to cross 24 properties, you're not necessarily going to disturb 24 lawns then?
That's right.
Oh.
That's right. So we'll be working in front of their property, but we won't be necessarily digging up their lawn. We'll be, or their driveway. Well, we still have to cross the driveway no matter what, because it goes out to the edge of the street. Still have to cross the driveway.
So that you would be repairing their driveway?
We do.
Or
So-
not repairing it? Because I'm still a little confused. At one point, you said that they told us only to do part of the street because we're going to be doing another part later.
So we will be in the street for a good portion of it, and if we can be in the street on the sections that hasn't been recently paved on Berkeley, we'll be in the street, and therefore we won't be crossing necessarily the driveway. We'll be out in front of the driveway. There is a few sections where it's been recently paved, or if we're in a sidewalk, we will cross the driveway because we're in off the street and we're on the sidewalk. When we repave the end of a driveway or that portion by the sidewalk, we don't want to leave a trench mark across your driveway.
No.
So if you picture this piece of paper being your driveway and we've cut across the end of it, we come all the way to the back edge of the trench and we pave all the way out to the edge of the road. So
And do you have the water direction headed towards, where the storm drains might be? I mean, what I guess I'm trying to say is you certainly don't want the water in the street to accumulate and then roll into their driveway. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I'm not sure. What do you mean by the water? Because I mean,
Water from rain or snow
yeah.
melt. We want to make sure it rolls away
Right.
from the home, in their garage,
Right.
and
So
towards the street.
When we replace the end of a driveway, we put back the same level as what it's presently at. So we wouldn't change the pitch of a driveway or anything like that. We would just replace what would be there already with the same pitch to maintain that. I mean,
I guess I would leave it up to the neighbors, but I would suggest if it's pitched the wrong way, like towards their house, they would prefer to have it pitched towards the street.
yes, but if a driveway is pitched down, for me to change the end of the driveway to pitch it up, I'm going to do that to the end of your driveway. I really can't. You won't be able to drive over it. You know what I'm saying? So
I do understand what you're saying.
So
I guess I would leave that to DPW and you to figure out Because nobody wants water pitching back into their
I
driveway.
agree. I completely agree. I agree. What we have done in the past is if you have a driveway that the water comes off the street into your driveway down towards your basement, sometimes they'll put a berm. If you have a berm, we'll replace it. If you want a berm, we'll put one in. So if you have a water issue and you are concerned about that, and you get water pitching towards your house, I have no problem with having the company that's going to be there to put a berm in to make sure that the pitch goes the other way.
Can we talk a little bit about that? So you're staying away from what was recently hot-topped. So is it going to look patchy on their street, the slightly older one and then the newer one, or?
Well, we're going to be off the edge of the road on the section that's been recently paved, so we won't be touching that.
Okay.
We'll be going down the edge of the roadway. In either it's going to be on the lawn or it's going to be in a sidewalk. And we're going to replace the sidewalk full width. So we're not going to be
Okay.
putting a strip down the sidewalk. We'll replace the full width of the sidewalk. So that won't look so patchy. When we get down to the end where it hasn't been paved, you will definitely see a trench until the town paves it. There will be a trench mark there. But we will pave it up to the full surface of what the roadway is.
And that will be there till, what, a year and a half to 2 years is what
Well,
was projected
Rock
at
will
the
be
time.
paved this July, so we'll be in
Rock
July.
Street for people at home, not just paving Rock.
Yeah,
So-
right. So Rock Street will be paved
Or
this
Rock Road.
July, and I think Berkeley is, the rest of Berkeley is next year. So it would be a year.
Okay. I guess we have people that, Madam Chair, that are chomping at the bit a little bit to.
So the Conservation Commission said that they had some concerns in the packet we were provided. Have you talked to them? Can you elaborate on what those would be?
I don't know what their concerns are because we have an environmental engineer that deals with that. I know that when we send a letter out, our department and the environmental department sends a letter out with a plan, and then they put mitigation that is required for any areas to keep any kind of runoff from going into a wetlands area. We put these silk baskets over the top of the drains. So we have a method that we use to keep the runoff from going in, and I know that's the case for this project. But I mean, I haven't been in contact myself with them, but I know we have a department that interacts with them, and we conform to whatever their concerns are. And we can make sure that they are completely on board before we start.
Just on the approval, just so you know, the approval that you signed for the order, number 7 requires them to comply with conservation
Oh, okay,
as part of it.
great. Any other questions from the board before I open it up to the public comment? Okay, I welcome anyone who's here from the public has a question to, oh, sorry, we don't have our podium up. Sorry. Thank you. To come to the podium and state your name and address and ask your
Gonna say,
questions.
"You need help?"
Thanks.
Hi, my name is June Corey. We live on Foss Road, which is road in the middle. We don't have any sidewalks. So I'm assuming that means our lawns, or what, the lawn that's part of really what would be the city or the town, okay. The other question I have is when the surveyors came on the road in front of our house, it says NG fault. So last year, they dug up our lawn. So I'm questioning whether when you're replacing some of the wiring, or what it's called, conduits, is there a section of the street that all the other conduits go into? So there's a hub or a pull box or something, so one lot would have more work being done on it than another?
So for Foss, we probably have the least amount of work being done on Foss. I can look at the plan with you if you'd like to make sure. But we've changed the prints and the plans from the original design that was done many years ago. We found that we were able to keep the loop going around the backside of Berkeley, and we come in on the other end of Berkeley and pick up a transformer on that end. So there is a section of Foss that we're not even going to be digging. So I don't know where you are on that piece of it, but as pertains to a hub, there is no real hub. It's a loop system. There's a riser pole down by 125 on Rock, and then there's a riser pole way up the other end of Berkeley by 114. And if you just can picture a loop of cable that runs from each riser pole through each transformer all the way around, and that's how it is. And in this case, it does go down Foss, but there's a section of cable that we're going to not be using. We're just going to abandon that cable.
Okay, so there won't be a cable, you may not replace anything, but it'll still give
But-
us new
Yes.
electric
Yeah,
current
all the
coming from-
transformers will be fed. Just as one section that we won't be needing with this new design on Foss.
Okay, thank you very
But I'll
much.
be glad, I have an extra copy of the print, if you want a copy to look at it, and I'll be glad to look at it with you, if you want, before you go. Okay? Oh, certainly.
Good evening.
Hi.
Hi.
Your name and address, please.
Rob Donovan, 71 Rock Road. A little under the weather today, so I apologize if I'm a little in and out. Specifically, I have just a couple of general questions. And how wide is the trench and how deep?
Okay, so the trench is around a foot wide, and it's about 36 to 40 inches deep.
So you'll only need to be able to dig 1 foot to access what you need working space?
Yes, yes. So we're putting one conduit that's about 3 inches in diameter in the bottom of the trench, fill it with sand, compaction, and that's all we need is 1 foot wide.
And specifically, so what if your property has a specific driveway type, like a paver system?
Right. So if you have pavers, we'll remove the pavers and we'll put them back.
And do you put them back immediately after you dig, or do you wait till the very end of the project?
We would replace them right after we do that section. I can make a specification for that.
So if you put them back and then you have to access and redig, say if there's an issue when you're pulling the wire through to the pull boxes or the manholes, you'd have to dig it up again?
I can't say that I've had to dig up conduit again after I've had it installed.
And then what if your irrigation system's affected?
Good question. So if you have irrigation out in that portion of the lawn and we are going across the lawn and we happen to hit it, we will repair it. We will replace any heads that are damaged. The civil crews that work out there carry those parts on their trucks. If we damage a head and we don't realize it, you just let us know and we'll replace it.
So say if my system gets damaged, I call you directly, and you schedule it to get replaced?
You can call me directly, you can send me an email, or if you see that the contractor working out there, if you go up to the contractor and say, you guys were working on my property just yesterday, and I went to use the system and it's not working, I have a damaged head, they'll replace it.
I just have a feeling that we're going to come to an issue, and then I go, oh, well, Chris told me to tell you to replace it, and he's going to go like, I don't know what to do.
No, that's not the case, but if you are more comfortable with dealing with me, you call me, and I'll take care of that.
And what about like mailboxes affected, or machinery that sits on the street when you dig? And how many linear feet do you dig a day?
They can do about 150 to 200 feet a day, depending on the type of soil and what they're digging.
And what end do you start from? Do you start from the Rock Road end coming in? It would be project east to west? Or would you be going from or you'd be coming from 2 different points?
That I can't tell you without speaking to the contractor, but I could get back to you on that.
That's a little alarming. So,
I mean, it's one end or the other. They started a riser pole, and then they worked their way down the project.
yeah, but you would know where the riser pole would be on the project and start from.
There's 2 of them, so I know they have 1 crew, and you typically leave it up to the contractor, and they pick one end, and they start at one end and work towards the other.
Well, makes sense.
Yeah.
And then, I don't mean to take everyone's time, I just,
No, that's okay.
there was one other specific question.
You can come back.
Yeah, all right, I'll let everyone else go.
Well, why don't you take my card? And if you want a copy of a print, I can give it to you, or you can call me or send me an email.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Your name and address, please, and if you don't mind, technically, you
Sure.
should really address the questions to the board, and then
Oh, sorry.
we will
Sure.
ask them.
Ashley Williams, 9 Rock Road. My question was about power outages. So how long, how often, how frequent, and then any spoiled food?
Right. Okay? I'm not anticipating any power outages while the construction is underway. When we finally get all of the conduit installed and we have to cut over from the old system to the new system, they may or may not have to take outages, but if they do, typically we'll do them between 9 and 2 in the afternoon. And if you don't open your refrigerator, you should be okay. You won't have any spoiled fruit. It's very infrequent that I have to take the full time to do a cutover, especially on a system that's a single-phase loop system like that. So.
Okay. And then what about mailboxes that are impacted?
Oh, yes, and I think that's what the other gentleman asked. If we have to move a mailbox, we'll put it back. If we damage a mailbox, we'll replace it.
Okay. And then where are each of the poles? So I'm 9 Rock Road, so I'm right at the beginning.
Yep. So I think 9 Rock is down by Route 114, is that right? Yep, so there's pole 3, which is right, 125, I'm sorry, 125. Is it 125?
We're new here.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yep, so there is one right on the corner by end of Rock Road.
Okay.
And then there's one down the end of Berkeley by 114.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Or comments?
It's Nancy Lever, and I'm at 21 Rock Road. I'm directly across from the retention pond,
Okay.
okay? The man-made pond by the
Okay.
contractor, okay? And I have also a water cap at the end of my driveway. So how far into the driveway will you have to cut? Because I have the sidewalk out on the second house on the right.
I'm trying to visualize that portion of it.
Coming from 125.
From 125. Is there a sidewalk presently right in front of you? Yeah, so we would be in the sidewalk.
And then at the end of my driveway,
Yeah.
probably from here to where that man is sitting, is a water cap in the middle of my driveway.
You mean like a shut-off? A water shut-off? Like a
I
service?
believe it is,
Yeah.
because it's there, and they've had to come back, Public Works, a number of times because it kind of sinks into the
Mhm.
driveway.
Right.
So will that be affected at all?
It shouldn't be affected. Every house has a water service, and we cross water services all the time. Water services are typically 5 to 6 feet deep, so we're not that deep. And we do deep safe, and we do ground penetrating radar to make sure that we don't hit anything, and we have it marked out. So I don't anticipate us having a problem with that.
When the street is paved, repaved, the pond overflows many times with a bad snowstorm or a rainstorm, and it flows down across 125 onto Peters Street down there, and then further down and down because of the way the land goes down like this. And that's an important thing. Like my driveway, when I had it torn up and repaved, they had to fix the
berm?
Yeah, so that it flowed, so I didn't get any water at the end of my driveway.
Right.
So
If you-
there's a concern about that.
Sure. And if you have a berm, we'll replace what you have. So whatever you have, we'll make sure we replace it.
Okay.
And if you're not happy, we'll take it out and put it in
Really?
again.
Really?
I
That's
swear.
not easy to do, you know?
It's
I
on
know.
the record, so not to worry.
done
It's
it.
on the record now.
I've done some driveways twice, so, I mean, if you have a berm and you're not happy with it, we'll replace it.
So when the work is being done, the contractors will be out there, because obviously I'm going to be affected by the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I just have a concern about the way the pavement of the street goes, so that that water doesn't collect in front of our homes and at the
Right.
bottom of Rock Road.
Right.
It crosses the road, the water comes to your house.
It comes through, there's a drainage across the street from my house, and the water comes up from the pond, it's a retention pond that the builder put in, and the water goes down, and it was purposely put there so we didn't have water, you know, in our basements and everything.
Right.
So that's a concern. Have you ever had water in your basement?
I'm sorry,
dialogue
this is inappropriate at this point. Can we, questions for the
Yeah,
project?
okay.
You guys can discuss. So, any other questions for this project or comments?
Wayne Gendron, 134 Berkeley Road, and I'm sorry I was late, but is this impacting the direct connections to the house, or is this only at the street level?
No, so it's not going to have any effect on the connections from to the house.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any other final questions from the board? Okay. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion. Oh, go ahead.
Move to close the public hearing to receive comments on proposed National Grid poll petition for Berkeley Road.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Any further discussion needed on our part?
No, I
think it
think
seems rather
most of the all the questions were answered. I think they were more than forthcoming, giving out their personal cards
Yeah.
to make sure that everyone was made whole again at the end of the project. So we appreciate that, and giving people the opportunity to reach out to you and offering to do things twice if you have to. So you may regret that one, but thanks for doing it. So I think
do it
everything
right.
looks good.
Honor.
Okay, thank you very much.
Do you have any further?
No, but my comment would be is that even though it was expressed at a public meeting on television, I would move that we approve the National Grid's poll petition for Berkeley Road as presented, including incorporating all the commitments as stated by the gentleman regarding how they would respond to property use and complaints.
Second. There's no harm in
Any
it.
further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Since I see Officer Daly here, who has got a uniform on, I will go out of order to take what I believe you're here for, which I guess is the request from the North Andover Booster Club for permission to use Johnson, Abbott, Salem, Marble Ridge, Milk, Chestnut, and Andover streets for the 4th of July road race. Well, you know.
Isn't that amazing?
That's right. You got to bring him along every time.
Thank you on behalf of the North Andover Booster Club to be in front of you and asking you for permission again for the second year. Last year was a great success. You know, we took it over for the first time, and it was a huge success in town, in the community. And we're hoping to have the same success and future success at all. So just looking for approval as we requested.
Yeah, thank you for doing it. I think it's been very successful, so appreciate that. Any other questions for these guys?
No, move approval.
Keep it rolling.
Second.
Guys.
Yes, yeah, great job, and thank you for picking up the baton on that.
Yeah.
Getting it going. Truly, an event that everyone in town enjoys, whether you're volunteering or running or just watching. It's a great event, so thanks for keeping that baton going.
Yeah. All right, motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, so now we'll go back to our regular order. So the next item on our agenda is the Stevens Estate. So I will briefly recap where we are, as I'm sure many of you probably know. We have 2 articles on the special town meeting warrant regarding the Stevens Estate. One to put a conservation restriction on 137, I don't remember, the number changed slightly, acres, the vast majority of the land, to protect the watershed, and an article to allow us to sell or lease the buildings with the condition that the historical preservation remain, which obviously will, since it has mass historical preservation on it, and that stays regardless of ownership, and an easement for trail use by the public. So we have put out an RFP in January of this year. We have received responses for that RFP. There was a technical issue without going into that. We put out a second RFP in March. We again, so in total, had 30 entities pull down that RFP. We had one respondent to the RFP. Luckily for us, I think it's a very promising one. So we have Elegant Banquets here tonight to present their proposal and answer any questions that the public might have about the proposal. And as well, I guess we can answer questions about just generally the selling of the estate. So I guess.
Or leasing.
Or leasing, sorry. So with that, maybe I will ask you guys to give a brief overview of the proposal. Thank you.
Should I, because the pitch is here, right?
Yes, that would be great. Well, yeah, you can stand at the podium and give an overview. Yes, thank you.
Oh, okay. So,
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Royce, and I'm one of the principal owners of Elegant Banquets. Elegant Banquets is a company that has 5 existing wedding venues. 4 of them are in Connecticut, and one of them is in Westchester. Basically what we do is we either build or we put additions on historic buildings, and we use them for weddings. The best way to think of us is as a wedding facility place. 8 out of 10 of our functions are weddings. Our weddings are during the season, usually mid-April to November, and they're usually on Friday nights, 1 on Saturday, and 1 on Sunday. In December, we use the facility a lot for Christmas parties and things of that nature. The other businesses that's done in there is event businesses, so it's not a restaurant. Even though what we've proposed is that we would open up the venue on a couple of holidays a year so that people could actually come and enjoy the estate. Now, the way it works is we need to have a facility that's going to be workable for our clients. Right now, the Stevens Estate is built as a house. Pretty fancy house, but a house. And it's not suitable to put 150 people in one room and dance and celebrate a wedding reception. But what it is suitable for, it's suitable for the beginning of a party, which is the cocktail hour. We've either been to a wedding or we've all been married. And we know that the first hour is a cocktail hour. And so the idea is that the original estate, which we intend not to change, only for the better, which I'll explain in a minute, would be used for people to come in for their first hour and have hors d'oeuvres and their drinks. And then they would move from the main building through a link to the ballroom. The ballroom will be a ballroom that seats 300 people with dancing. It'll have 24-foot high ceilings. It'll be not modern, it'll be very traditional. It'll have big chandeliers, big crystal chandeliers, and a nice sized dance floor. So that's what we would be doing. We've done this already. There's a building that we just completed about a year ago, same exact identical concept, called La Chateau. It's in Westchester. It's on the web, and you could see what we did. So the building itself. The way we see the building is we see this building as an absolutely spectacular piece of work that we do not want to change at all. If anything, we want to bring this building back to what it was. Certainly not let it go down any further with altering the building. So what does that mean? That means the first thing we want to do is bring the building back to where it was originally designed. So the road now that comes up goes like this, and goes to the back of the building. I didn't realize this until someone pointed it out to me. But the back of the building, as you look at it now, where this addition was on by Boston U, is the front of the building. So what we intend to do is to demolish that building that's attached and refinish, hopefully we don't have to do much, and refinish the front of the building where it was attached so it is restored back to its original look. Then, as we put this road in here, we're gonna have people come in the front door instead of the back door. So this was the way that the building was designed to be the front door. That's what we intend to bring it back to. We will put in a courtyard, a very fancy courtyard that goes with the era of the building. For, as we all know, when people get married, they're dressed in tuxedos and they're dressed in gowns and they're dressed in their best suits and everything. They get their cars washed, waxed, hopefully, just kidding, but everybody's on their best. So they pull up here and then they can drop somebody off. It could be valet parking and then they come here. Now this is an existing parking area here. And over here is a proposal for additional parking, because we will need additional parking. This is not drawn exactly to scale, but it gives you an idea of where we would put it. We wanted to stay out of wetlands, and that was the closest spot to the building that keeps us out of wetlands. This is a formal garden that we would use next to the ballroom that would be used for photo shots for the bride and groom, the wedding party, and it would also be used for a ceremonial, outdoor ceremonial area. So if the weather is really nice, we would set up chairs here, and we would have this designed where the bride and groom could have their vows out the side yard. Okay, so then the rest of the property, this is stables. And the exterior of this building would be, everything would always be gone through historic preservation. So we would do the same thing with the outside of this, but the inside of this building has been completely altered. There is nothing inside that building that's historic. It's been completely demolished and put into whatever it was put into, but it's not anything that anybody wants to keep. So what we would do here is we would leave the outside the way it is, freshen it up, and on the inside we would make it for indoor ceremonies. So when the weather's bad, you could come in here. It's actually pretty suitable for that because it's a two-story building inside. We would take off the second story inside, so it would open it up and it would feel like a ceremonial area. We would also use it for possible conferences, smaller parties, that kind of thing. The parking for that would be here, which is where the parking is right now for the trails. And what we were thinking there was that we would put the parking for the trails here and hook up the trail entranceway here. We have no intentions of stopping the trail entranceway here, but we have no intentions of altering the trails or anything like that. The reason why we were doing it is we felt that if somebody was walking their dog and they wanted to go for a jog or something like that, if there was a ceremony coming on here, I think everybody would feel awkward if they pulled up and they were walking the trails and they walked in front of a bride that just came out of getting married. So there would still be access to all the trails with plenty of parking with this new additional parking lot, which we would also use for overflow parking that we need for this building. The scale of the building. The scale of the building is, the existing building is a 3-story building. It is 23,000 square feet. I believe that the first floor is somewhere around 5, and then it has the Boston University addition on it, which is 1,500 feet. which we'll get rid of. What we intend to do is this link here, we call it a link, it's considered like a hallway. In that link will be a new kitchen, because the kitchen in the original building is not suitable. So we would build a new state-of-the-art kitchen. And we would have two areas for modern bathrooms, men's and ladies' rooms. So, you know, we wouldn't have small places. They would all have suitable amount of stalls to carry this kind of occupancy. Then when you go through here, right at this point here, you'll open the doors, and there it is. There's the hallway, which is in here. Now, it's a very straightforward, big, beautiful, gorgeous room, big, beautiful, great chandeliers with a great area for the bride and groom to sit in their wedding party, and an area for the band. It's all acoustically designed so that people can actually talk when they're at a wedding. So a lot of thought went into this. We built this exact same thing, except for the kitchen here, in a historic building in Westchester. Just did it. It's amazing when we saw this RFP. It is so similar. It is the same concept. So we just did it. So we know the dimensions. Now, one thing that we tried to do, and we just put this together pretty quickly as far as rendition is concerned, is we intend to make this building blend in with this building as close as humanly possible. We have no visions of trying to compete with this building or to make this look like an addition. We've taken the roof lines just on the rendition, and we matched them with the peaks radiuses that's on the existing building. We matched some of the windows with some of the windows here. We've taken these, will not be real, but they'll be matching these chimneys. The coloring of the roofs will be the same coloring of the roofs, and the stone coloring we'll try to bring in on the base, and the same thing with the siding. We'll try to blend it in so that it complements this. It doesn't compete with it. Our biggest compliment would be people that come in and not even know that this was an addition. So we're trying to make it look like that. The way the cut is the entire estate is this, and there was 15 acres cut out of the entire estate. From what I understand, this entire area, that's the balance, which was 137.36,
Yep.
is going to be forever wild and conserved. Never to be touched, nothing. That will always be like that with walking trails. The 15 acres that was cut out is pretty much containing the Stevens estate itself. And that is also going to also be regulated by the historic rules and regulations. There's nothing that we can do to the Stevens estate that the Historic Commission doesn't have authority over. We cannot do anything to the exterior of that building at all without their permission. So this is highly restrictive. Okay? Even the design that we put on for the addition has to pass the historic board. So that is, we understand that, and we actually agree with it. The inside of the building of the original mansion, what we intend to do is, there's been areas where there's a kitchen, and that has been kind of disturbed a lot from what the original estate was. We will work and try to bring that back by using the same wood that's in the areas that wasn't disturbed when you first walk in, and you have these great rooms all over. We'll try to see if we can design a room to blend right back into the estate. We've done that before with the other building in Westchester, and it can be done. The rest of it, we don't intend to touch at all. So the entire first floor will be refreshing, maybe some new carpets, buff the floors up, polish things up, keep the fixtures, you know, bring it back to what it was. It has tremendous character. So when you walk up to the second floor, what we intend to do on the second floor is we are not going to have anybody stay overnight in this facility. This is an event place where the party happens and then people leave. We don't have staff members, we don't have brides and grooms, we have nobody staying in this place. So upstairs, what we intend to do is where they have the bridal suite now, will be the bridal suite, except minus staying overnight. So the bed will come out, and then we'll just have furniture. It'll just be a suite. There'll be a groom suite, which we have great success in our other buildings. The grooms love to have their own place to go to. It's not just the brides. So just to divest just a second, when we did a groom suite in our other place, I told the story before you heard this, but I walked to the very first wedding, and there was a groom sitting there with his barber, and he was having his hair cut for the day of the wedding. And I thought that was so cool. You know, why should the women always get the haircuts? Right? So he was sitting there getting his hair cut. Anyway, there was a groom suite. Then there'll be offices, which we have no intentions of altering walls or bathrooms or anything. We'll take the existing structure and we'll make offices out of them. We'll have our sales office. We'll have our person who does the event planning. She'll have an office, or he. We'll have a general manager. And we'll have a secretary. That secretary could be down on the main floor, and if it is, she'll just have a desk, and we just keep the aesthetics of the house at all times. What we were thinking of doing, what we're willing to do, we did it in the last building, and it worked out pretty well, is to take a room up there, because there's a lot of rooms up there, and there's one giant room up there that really we don't have any use for, and make it a Stevens Historic Room. So what we would do is we would work with the Stevens Historic Committee, and we would fix that room up and put all the Stevens artifacts in there. Any articles that we can find, any old photos we can find, any old phone systems, any old furniture, any old pictures, anything that was from the original Stevens estate, we'll put it in that room, and we'll call it the Stevens Historic Room. That room will be open to the public during our business hours. We're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and on the weekends, we're open from 9, Saturday and Sunday, until the party's over. The only time it wouldn't be open to the public is when we actually physically have a function going on, which I explained to you before, is usually on the weekend nights. Because the bride and grooms pay for the exclusivity of the building, and we don't want to disturb that. It's their building when they buy the night. So we're more than welcome to let people come. Schools can come, classes can come, groups can come. It doesn't matter to us. They can walk around the estate anytime they like, as long as there's no functions going on. We don't have any problems with people coming and just walking in the gardens, taking a look at the parks. We're fine with that. We're open to the public for that. So that's how the second story would be. The third story, we don't have any use for it. So I don't know what we do. Maybe storage stuff that people do with their attics, you know, goes up there and you forget it. I don't know. The basement, we might use some storage space down there, but we don't have any use for the basement. So that's how the interior of the main building will be. The exterior of the building, I've already gone through. The grounds I've gone through. The business plan I've gone through. And I'll just give you what the economical benefits to the town would be if we did do this project. We Usually what happens is you get a bride and groom and they get their list of all their places they want to go check out. So we have a lot of brides and grooms that will drive here that will say, you know what, I'm not sure what I want to do, let's go have lunch. And they'll go to someplace locally and have lunch. You'll have brides and grooms that'll come and say, we'll book it. And then when they book it, what happens is there is a rehearsal before their day of their wedding. And they have a rehearsal dinner. And the rehearsal dinner is for the bridal party, and it's for all the out-of-town relatives. And they always have it locally because they do the rehearsal in the building. So there'll be, there's a lot of restaurants that are gonna do very, very well because they're gonna bring 20, 30, 40, 50 people to these restaurants, and they'll take a back room. So for every wedding, there'll be a rehearsal dinner. So that's an economical development. About 30, 40% of the people that come here are from out of town. When I say out of town, hotel, they need hotel spaces out of town. Because we draw from a 30-mile radius. This is not going to be primarily brides and grooms from North Andover. There'll be brides and grooms from North, but we draw from 30 miles. So there'll be people from all over. There'll be people from Boston that will drive out to the country and get married here. And a lot of them will take hotel rooms. Will this spur a hotel developer to come into town? I mean, with Amazon and, you know, a possibility with a project like this, and I understand there's already a need for a hotel in this town, who knows? It's possible. We bring employment to the town. We'll have probably 5 to 10 people full-time, and we'll have literally dozens and dozens of part-time people. Waiters, waitresses, kitchen staff, maitre d's, people like that. So it'll bring a lot of employment. It'll bring taxes. I mean, we intend not only to pay, if it's a lease, we're flexible. Whatever the town feels most comfortable with, a lease, for sale, whatever it is, it's fine with us. So we're flexible as far as that is concerned. So therefore, it's going to be, no matter what it is, there's going to be real estate taxes paid by us. Whether it's a lease or it's a sale, we pay real estate tax. So those are the economical areas that we bring as a benefit. We come with references. We can have, I've already spoke to the first selectman in one town where we have 2 facilities. And they would be more than happy to accept a phone call from anybody to tell you how we've been as far as citizens in the town. We have one letter that we received from one of our town planners. And it's the same thing when you look at the services that we use. We use very few services, and our traffic pattern is really just the weekends, so it doesn't really affect the rush hour patterns. It's a concept that is working for us, and without this ballroom, the project does not work. And the reason it does not work is people are very much educated in what they're looking for. And so at the end of the day, they want everything. They want it all. And this gives the bride and groom everything. So we have a leg up on our competition because our competition usually is missing something. Whether it's a country club, there is a lot of things going on which is competing with the bride and groom. This is exclusive. When they take this building, it's theirs for the entire day. And that has a value to a lot of brides. So that only works as long as you give them a comfortable place, and that is really this ballroom. This ballroom is key to the whole operation. Without the ballroom, the rest of the estate is not attractive to us.
So,
I think I covered everything.
yeah, I think so, and I just want to tack on to, so you kind of ended with the economic benefits for the town, so I guess I just want to recap the financial situation with the Stevens estate right now. So we've had lots of conversations. I know there's been, in prior meetings that we've had the chairman of the Stevens Estate Committee come. I've met with him several times myself. I think we're in agreement. The Stevens Estate has generated some profit in the past over the last 6 to 7 years, but this year it's expected to generate a loss. The Stevens Estate Advisory Committee agrees with that. Next fiscal year, it's expected to generate a loss. One might say, can we absorb that loss with a $100 million budget? We can absorb that loss out of the retained earnings account, but then we're not retaining more earnings to continue to keep the estate in good repair. So that's primarily my concern. I feel that as stewards of the Stevens estate currently, it's our obligation to figure out how to provide the best long-term stewardship for the estate and be able to keep it up. Another suggestion by the Stevens Estate Advisory Committee was, if you look at our financials, one of the reasons we're projecting a loss is because we're moving some portion of the money into a capital fund to fund capital improvements to the estate. If we didn't move that money into the fund, we wouldn't have a loss. We would be even, or, it wouldn't be as much of a loss. To that I say, well, that's fine, but that's not a good long-term solution in my mind, because then we're not going to have a capital fund of money to invest in the estate. And I guess in my mind, while yes, we have a large budget, we do not have the kind of money to put, I think you estimated that as a $6 million addition that you're putting onto the estate. I don't think we have $6 million to invest in the Stevens estate. Certainly the retained earnings account does not have that kind of money, and the article that we passed when we purchased the Stevens estate specifically said that it would self-fund itself. So I don't foresee us having, even if we were to double down on, more marketing or more people making phone calls to try and get more brides or what have you, I just don't see us making that kind of revenue where we could invest in that kind of addition to ensure a successful, well-booked event venue in the future. So I guess I just wanted to comment on a little bit more on the financial piece. So for me, this opportunity has all the economic benefits that John just mentioned, but also has the economic benefit of us not having to continue to invest in the long-term maintenance of the estate and the marketing and being in a business, the costs of being in an event management business, which I don't think as a municipality we should be in. That's my opinion. Anyway, that was just, yes, please, any other comments?
Completely agree. I love what you've done. I love that the conceptual design has been adjusted to better reflect the existing building. I did have some questions, Mr. Royson, so I was hoping, and actually I don't know how much is being picked up by the microphone, and I know that sounds silly, but I know a lot of people watch from home, so.
They always tell me I talk too loud anyway, so I'm sure you must be hearing me.
Yeah, I'll defer to our team, and he's gesturing to go towards the mic.
Right.
So you own you operate 5 facilities already?
Operate and own, yes.
You own all 5?
Own all 5, yeah.
Are any historic restrictions currently applied to any of those facilities?
On one of them, yes.
And so what's the restriction that's applied, or can you elaborate on that type of?
Yeah, when J.P. Morgan built a Tudor in 1906 in Westchester for his preacher.
Mm-hmm.
It was a real Tudor, a real English Tudor. And so over the years, His preacher died, it went into disrepair. The town ended up, to make a long story short, the town ended up getting the property back. When they got the property back, they sold it to a French nationalist couple who ran it successfully as a French restaurant. They named it La Chateau for probably 30, 35 years. When they left the restaurant, their daughter and son-in-law took it over, and the fine dining was starting to go down. People weren't going out to very fancy castle kind of places, so they went bankrupt.
Okay.
When they went bankrupt, we picked it up, and when we picked it up, we had went to the town, and we had said the only way we can make this work, this was on 25 acres, is to put an addition on. Almost identical, except it's a 2 to skin. The inside is almost identical. And it was zone residential. So they gave us a use variance to do it for, I think it was over 8,000 square feet. The reason why this is a little bit bigger is the kitchen, we were able to put the kitchen in the existing building. And this one, we have to pull the kitchen out because there's just not a... When we were going through the process, the historic committee came along to us and said, it's not officially declared historic, but if you don't do what we'd like you to do, we're going to go against the project, and you know how that goes.
I understand.
So they went and they asked us to write a book about the building, which we did, and document everything in the building. And we told them just what we're telling you now about not changing anything in the building, and they agreed.
So what, it's not necessarily a historic restriction, though.
No, it's not. I'm sorry, yeah.
Okay.
Even though we did have to go through some historic committees.
Would you retain an interest in this property in the event that the selectmen negotiated with you to apply more historic restrictions or oversight, so that way?
Yes.
I believe
Yeah.
you when you say that you won't change any of the interior.
Yeah.
But just to ensure that.
I would absolutely do that. I mean, my business, the reason why this building works for me is because of the historic look of the building. That's the whole key. So yes, to answer your question short and sweet, absolutely yes. We would live with more restrictions if there was more.
Okay.
Yes.
And I'm jumping only because, well, I didn't want to
Sure.
steal the mic away. You're pretty vague in the employment numbers for this facility, just because, and I get it, in the function facility, there are a lot of part-time employees, and it can change depending on the season. At a comparable facility like the one in Westchester, would it be fair to say that that's the most comparable of the 5 that you?
Yes, yes, it would be.
What's the actual employment numbers?
My CFO is not here now. Normally he's here. I'd be taking a stab at it. I could get those for you. I know we have at least 7, 8 full-time employees.
Okay.
And then depending on the demand, we do probably 150 functions a year. We probably do 22,000 people, and we usually do 1 server per 10.
Okay.
So if you do the math, and then that's times probably 6 or 7 hours a function of work. No, probably more, probably like 8 hours. So it's pretty substantial.
And certainly more than we currently employ there, right?
Oh, it's not even close. We couldn't do what we intend to do and pay for what we're paying here and maintain it with the volume of business you're doing, we would be out of business. That's why we wouldn't do it without the addition. This is one of these things that you really have to do it right or you don't do it. You have a lot of experience with the way it is now, and you see what happens the way it is now. I don't even have to tell you, there's a long history of, there's 10 years of the way you do it now. And I couldn't do that. I couldn't make money doing it like that. It's not that you're doing it wrong, it's just that people walk in there and they say, well, where am I going to get married? And when you say a tent, there's a lot of negativities to tents because there's weather involved. This is a 12-month operation. We will be doing fundraisers on this for galas, for charities, whether it's cancer research, in the winter. We will be doing school proms in here. And, they're usually May. And, so at the end of the day, you need to have a guaranteed shelter, if you will. So that's why they'll book here, because there's nothing that they can ask us that we can't answer based on this facility. And it is exclusivity to them.
Those are all my questions.
All right.
So, Mr. West, just a couple questions. The Chateau, Le Chateau, is that also open to the public during your normal business hours? So if people wanted to go take a look, maybe if someone wanted to take a road trip to Westchester, is that also open to the public?
The La Chateau, I have an historic room. I did exactly the same thing. So I have a room with great artifacts in the room. And so many people come in there that are looking for weddings, saying, what's the history? I said, just go upstairs and there's a history room and walk around. So that happens to our existing clients. No one asked us to open it to the public.
Okay.
If anybody walks in and wants to see it, we tell our staff, fine, let them do it. We don't have anything against that.
And having just done that, and this being so similar, what would you estimate the investment that you'd be making in this property?
I think it's going to be about $7 million.
And how much of that would be in the mansion?
90%.
90% of that would be in the mansion?
Yeah. No, sorry. The addition.
The addition?
The addition would be 90%. 10% would be in the existing building is in pretty good shape, inside and out. It's not bad. You know, it's not like it's falling down. It's in good shape. It looks good. You've maintained the building pretty well.
So it would be about almost $750,000 you'd out of that?
Probably, roughly, because one of the things that we would need to do is we need to put air conditioning in. And how we did air conditioning in the other building is we came up through the basement. So we didn't disturb anything on the existing. And how we would do the air conditioning on the second story would be, we would come in through the third story. So the building needs air conditioning, and it presently doesn't have it. So that's really important for our business plan. And so there's quite a bit of money right there, just for that.
Do you envision yourself using local contractors to get the work done as well, or do you have?
Yeah, I don't have anything against local contractors. I would use local architects too, if we could find the right person that does historic buildings. I would actually consult with the historic committee to see if they could find someone that could make the addition look like the building. That's my goal, is to do that.
I have to say, your first rendering,
Was a mistake.
those are your words, but my first reaction was, the building is just so overpowering, and
Correct.
it didn't blend in with the existing estate.
Right.
But to me, that was small, that was stuff that, not small to you perhaps, but that was small in the fact that that can be changed, you know,
Right.
and you did.
Yep.
I was first like, why aren't they using the same colors? Why aren't they using
Right.
the same type of architecture? I mean, it struck out to me immediately, and I thought, okay, this is the first pass. I will caution you, though, on the third floor, and a lot of people don't know this, and I might not say it correctly. They had a design from one of the windows on the third floor, and the lighting came in such a way, and they had special windows that actually cast these, like, lights, I don't know how else to, natural lights, and the walls had some kind of a shine or tint to them, and it was just quite magical. The windows have been removed and they painted over that. So my first comment is, my goodness, please don't fill all of that with air conditioning equipment if this comes to fruition, that would be something I think that should be restored, because it was sort of an architectural
Right.
specialty that just sort of lit up in a really beautiful way on
Right.
the third floor. It might have been the second, but I'm pretty sure it's the third. But that's discussion. We still have a ways to go before we get to that.
Right, yep.
But I have to say, I do appreciate the fact that your second rendering was much more complimentary than the first.
Yeah.
I'm still a little not so crazy where the parking lots are, but
Right.
again, but I think the big thing for me, and I've said this more than once, you heard me say it this afternoon as I stopped by this needs to, the final design and plan needs to be approved by the citizens of North Andover. I
Correct.
do not support, as great as they all are, that we get carte blanche and we just decide, and then we'll fill you in after we decide. I really do believe that this has got to come back for the citizens to say yay or nay. But I do appreciate, and you had mentioned yourself at the previous meeting that you thought that was a reasonable idea, and I
Yep.
appreciate that very much.
Yeah, just to be,
Can I just understand
sorry.
what you mean by that?
Yeah, do you mean through the planning board process or through a town meeting?
Through the town meeting, where the people get to see the plan, see the design, see what it's all. Right now, we just have conceptual and really interesting things, but I do think it should come back for a final vote of the people. That's my opinion. I know I spoke about this at a previous meeting, and I mentioned it briefly again this afternoon. The people of North Andover all gathered when we didn't have a lot of money and voted themselves in a major override. I think they have the right, and we've invested money and CPA money to maintain that building, and we've done a pretty good job. It's not perfect, it still needs more, there's no question about it. But I think for that reason alone, that they should say, yeah, we like this.
I need to know where you're coming from.
I think I said that pretty clearly.
Why didn't you feel the same way when we redesigned Town Hall?
I actually did.
You wanted a committee. You didn't want it before town meeting.
A committee that was the vote of the Board of Selectmen.
But you're saying you want town meeting to approve this design.
No, the whole project, it's not just the design. But that's my opinion, Phil, you might have a different opinion.
Just trying to understand the consistency of it, because we do have a lot of discussions about how we design things, and I appreciate the feedback we get from the public, but do we want the public, and I want to know, and this isn't a loaded question, is it the philosophy that we want to approve projects, every design project, every architectural element? Do we want that to go before town meeting for every project?
Again, we're talking about this project this evening. We're talking about an estate that the townspeople chose to purchase, to maintain. It also has historical qualities of our town. It also has land that we all use and enjoy. It's not quite the same, but I did support having the different boards. I think we have people in the room that I said, I don't really want to rehash old news, but the plan was presented to us by the town manager, and I said, whoa, wait a minute. We do committees in this town, and we brought it back to the board for him to come with his designer. It was pretty much all done.
Wait, what?
Yes, Town Hall was.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Stevens Estate. Sorry, I was.
No.
Totally
Town Hall
confused
was
what you're
pretty much
talking
done, but I really don't want to get into that. Let's talk about this evening. It's not really for you to quiz me.
I'm just asking you made a statement. I was asking where you're coming from because I want to know, just moving forward. I mean, it's important to understand where each of us stand as colleagues, and I just was hoping to hash that out. I didn't want you to get defensive.
I felt as though we should have had a committee by this board for the senior center. That did not happen.
I just wanted to say one thing on this. This is a conceptual idea. I'm willing to redesign, to do whatever's required, and there's going to be 100 committees that I have to go through. Architectural Review Board, I'm going to have to go through landscaping review, I'm going to have to go through historic review on the materials of the building, and all of that I have no problem with because we're all aiming for the same thing. The real question is the concept of this. Is the concept of what I'm trying to do here, does this work for everybody or not? We'll get the rest of it straight.
Exactly. I think that's the same thing with every project that we ever talk about. We vote at town meeting to give basically the applicant the right to go forward, and then during the planning board process, and in this case, Historic Commission and others, we get to the details. I mean, without throwing it out there, we have another very large project, 1600 Osgood. We're not going to know every last detail about that building either. That's part of the planning board process. We're voting on whether or not we want the concept. So this is a rendering as part of a proposal to explain the concept. And now we're saying, do we want it or not? Do we want the concept? Do we want to let them go through these planning board process? Obviously, he'll have all his restrictions from the historic preservation, planning, and so forth. That'll deal
Yeah,
with
to
the
me, as long
stormwater
as I
management,
get
the parking, and all
the
that.
basic business plan, which is the ballroom, as long as I get that, I don't care. I mean, as long as it doesn't going to cost $1 zillion. If it's reasonable, I'm more than willing to do anything. Literally, whatever the town wants to do, I'll do. So it's the concept. Do we want to make this a banquet facility, which it already is? Do we want to make it more of a formal banquet facility? Do you want to do it with me? Do you want to do this kind of idea? Check my background, check what we did in La Chateau. We're experts at this, or not. You know, that's really the bottom line.
And I think that's a very fair question, and I
Yeah.
think it's fair for the townspeople to weigh in on it. And I appreciate that, you being so open and accommodating. I think even from the part of the presentation I saw today, earlier, and then hearing you, I can see where you seem very sincere, and that's appreciated.
Thank you.
Chris, do you have any
Thanks.
questions before I open to the public to ask questions?
The question standpoint, I guess the number one question I have is, you look at this facility and you look at potential. And you're saying that we've done a superior or a very good job with a product that doesn't match opportunity. And you're saying, I'm going to be very flexible to getting input, and obviously have to deal with all these other guidelines that you have to deal with. At the end of the day, when you look at this, isn't this an opportunity that only comes up so often? And you've got to take that when it's available. If you hadn't found out about this, you'd be looking someplace else. Is that right? I mean, you're...
I'm still looking somewhere else. I have a very similar project like this in Wellesley that I'm looking at. I have my real estate people looking for places like this in demographics that work for us. So we love this. If people would really just get on La Chateau's website, I can't tell you enough. If you get on it, you will see this project. It's an old, beautiful Tudor, and we put an addition on it seamlessly. It looks like it was always there. And the interior of La Chateau, and there's many pictures of it, is historic, and it is kept exactly the way it was, just cleaned up. And the ballroom is in there. It's going to be the same interior. The ballroom will be the same interior. So this business plan really does work. And
Good, I'm good.
Okay, great. So
Yes.
maybe at this point, we can open up to public comment and questions. I would ask everyone to limit their comments to 3 to 5 minutes if possible, and we'll go from there. I want to make sure everyone gets the opportunity to have their question answered.
Thank you. My name is Jim LaFond. I live at 329 Osgood Street. And I almost feel like I could give Mr. Royce's presentation. This is the 4th time I've been to it. He gets better every time. But I don't think that's the issue. I really don't. And I've talked to our Chairwoman Keene about this. I don't think the town has ever been given an opportunity to have the flat-out discussion about whether the townspeople think it's appropriate for the town to sell or lease the Stevens estate. It's a lot different than 1600 Osgood Street, because we don't own 1600 Osgood Street. This is a facility that the town put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into. We really didn't have a lot of money. We weren't in as stable a financial condition as we are today. But we did, because obviously the town back then, at that point in time, and I don't know what the vote was, but it was a majority, obviously, decided that this was something the town wanted to preserve. Open space, watershed protection, historic reasons, and maybe even because facilities like this are the fabric of our town, or part of the fabric of our town. There aren't many comparable comparisons that I can make in town, but historically, Stevens Pond, a facility that the town has hung on to for years, even though it runs at a deficit annually. The North Andover Common, which back in the 40s and early 50s had buildings on it that we cooperated with other entities in the town, historical commissions, et cetera, to actually remove those properties at their expense, our expense, and we put money in. We plant trees, we maintain the grass, all at a deficit. They are definitely different facilities, but this is a one-in-a-lifetime unique facility. There is nothing in North Andover that we can really compare it to. To me, it's a matter of, do we want to do it? We did 25 years ago. We said we wanted to do it. Have we done it perfectly? I don't think so, no. Can we do better? Yes. But I don't think you need to throw the baby out with the bathwater here. You know, we have had some profitable years, so why not take the tack, let's have more profitable years instead of we're going to have projected years of losses. We may. I think that that runs in any facet of government. We're providing services, really. And the service here is a very unique one. We can set aside the open space and preserve that protective right. We can protect the watershed by keeping everything outside of the watershed. But as far as the historic preservation goes, and again, with all due respect to Mr. Royce and his organization, this is really not, in my opinion, historic preservation. When you take an existing building with without the BU addition, a 5,000 square foot footprint, you add a 10,000 square foot addition, you take parking lots and you increase them by approximately 3 acres if you just scale it off. It doesn't preserve, to me, an estate, in Mr. Royce's words, which was designed as a house. This turns it into a complete commercial facility. I also disagree with the fact that, and I know I'm overgoing 3 minutes here, but I ask your indulgence because, you know, again, 4 times I've listened to Mr. Royce's presentation. There are other things. There are plenty of people who have weddings that are only 50 or 60 people. There are plenty of small meetings like Rotary clubs. I think we could do a better job. It's all going to be in our attitude, how, you know, what attitude we adopt. Can we do this as a town? I don't see any reason why the town shouldn't be in this business, if you want to call it that. We run senior centers, we run youth centers, we run ponds, we run commons, we run school systems. Some of it we're mandated to do, and others we do it voluntarily. But again, I think this is a prized facility. I don't think it ought to be changed. I think we ought to work with what we have, take the losses when we have them, and just do our best to do the best that we can. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. I just would like to respond to the point around the fact that this is a service that the town, for lack of a better word, has similar to Stevens Pond, and the fact that we run that as a deficit. I've spent a lot of time thinking about that because you said it at a previous meeting. For me, this is absolutely 100% different from that. We are operating Stevens Pond at a deficit so that children who don't have another place to learn to swim that live in North Andover can go to Stevens Pond and learn to swim and have a place to be entertained in the summer. To compare that to a wedding venue where someone is having their wedding, and if we're operating it at a loss, that means all of our taxpayer dollars are subsidizing that person's wedding. That person might not even be a resident of North Andover. So if we are operating at a deficit, we're all agreeing that the money that is then otherwise used is taxpayer dollars, right? We don't have any other money.
Every penny there is taxpayer dollars.
So I just don't think that that's a fair comparison, because not everybody in North Andover is enjoying the Stevens Estate as it is right now. The pond and the town common, to me, are just, they're completely different. I don't think it's a fair comparison, because the Stevens Estate is not used like that. It's rented by people from wherever for their wedding. So I take your other points, but that particular point, I felt the need to respond to that.
If you listen to my words, Chairwoman Keene, I said there was no comparison. The comparison is only there to illustrate that the town does things, most things, it is all tax dollars. Everything we do is tax dollars.
Right.
And we can do this if we want to as well. At Stevens Pond, you charge for swimming lessons. You don't provide
a very small fee. A very small fee.
You charge, what, $12 a day to park a car there? So the point is, that there are ways to defray costs. The point is not to provide weddings for people. The point is that the weddings defray the cost of our historic preservation of what I consider a gem. That's the point. And you don't have to have weddings.
If it's at a loss?
Excuse me?
Do
It
they
defrays.
I said, do they defray the cost
If it's at a loss.
if it's operating at a loss?
If we didn't charge, the loss would be a hell of a lot greater.
Well, then we
That's not
wouldn't
her
have a
question.
wedding at all. That's not my question.
What is your question? Your question is,
You said we're having weddings to defray the cost
Aren't we?
of operating the estate. I'm saying it's not defraying the cost if we're not.
A portion of it.
If we're not.
It's a portion of it.
it's a
If we're
portion of
operating
it.
at a loss.
It-
I'm simply saying, if we're operating at a loss, then we are subsidizing these events.
No, it's a quality of life issue that the town chose to take on.
A wedding venue?
No.
Is a quality of
no,
life issue?
Restoring a historic building in the land, in the field, the trails. It would, the
But
town.
we're still preserving the land and the field and the trails.
They're not mutually
All of that
exclusive.
is in the other article that preserves the land and the trails.
That's correct. It's about the building, that's
It's the
correct.
and I
But
said
if
the
buil-
historic building
If
at the
the building
beginning.
costs X amount of dollars per year to maintain, whether or not it's ever opened, in other words, we heat it, we air condition it, we polish the floors, we paint it when it needs paint, we put a new roof on it, it's still going to be X amount of dollars. The idea of having weddings or Rotary Club meetings or luncheons or business meetings is that you do potentially, you aim to run a profit, to get a profit. And you yourself said 5 or
You
6
aim
years.
to.
And did you not say that in 5 or 6 years we did run a profit?
A small one, not enough to.
Well, even a small profit defrays the cost of maintaining
By
that
the way,
holistic estate.
if you look at the financial, we put all the financials online, by the way, so anyone who wants to look at the financials of the Stevens Estate can go to the town website, click on the link that says something about the Stevens Estate. You can find the article where we voted in town meeting to buy it.
Thank you.
The financials, and anything else you want to know about it. But the financials point out, there's an annual tab, and we did not start putting money away into this capital fund until later, let's say 2017, I don't remember the exact year. So these profits were made, when we say it was profitable, well, we weren't putting any money into a capital fund either. So we had to rely on other CPC and other things. But that was not the right way to run it. We should be putting money into capital. If we're going to own it, money needs to be transferred into capital to maintain the building. That's the proper thing to do. So I agree we made profit in the past. I will say that clearly, but we were not transferring, prior to 2017, I'd have to pull up, we were not transferring into capital, which is an issue in my opinion. But anyway.
It's basically, I think what we're hearing is people have different views on what the town's priorities and quality of life issues are. I don't see it that we're subsidizing weddings. I'm seeing that the weddings are subsidizing the facility, but
Well, again,
everybody's
thank
got
you
a
for your
different way
time.
of looking at it.
Thank you, sorry. Any other comments, please?
Good evening, and this is my second time also hearing Elegant Banquets, and you did a great job again. We had a discussion at supper practically over at across the street, the Chowder House. My name is Kathy Sisker, and I'm chair of the North Andover Historical Commission. And our mission statement, which I have had for many years, says we are to preserve and protect houses, landscapes, buildings, et cetera, that are of value to the citizens of North Andover. And if there ever was a house that was of value to the citizens of North Andover, it is the Stevens Estate. There's a saying in historic circles, once it's gone, it's gone. There is no amount of tears or money or wishing or hoping. Once it is gone, it is gone. So, as you can imagine, our efforts would be not to have this to go forward. We appreciate the presentation. It looks very nice, but as far as the Historic Commission is concerned, we would still not be going forward with this. Just today, a fellow on my commission got a response from Mass Historic about the preservation restrictions, and they said,
given, and that this was not the second set of plans that had come, or drawings, this was the first set, they said they would absolutely not agree with the first set of plans that were sent to Mass Historic by my colleague on the Historical Commission. So that's going to be a problem for Elegant Banquets.
Do you have that in writing?
CJ has it. Yes, he does. I can ask him to send it to you. Absolutely.
If it was against the first set of plans, though.
Right, and the other,
That's really.
right, the other question is, though,
But you did mention at that meeting.
Yes.
that The reason they were against it was the building overwhelmed the original.
it did,
It
yes.
And this
Which was a
building
mistake,
is
yes.
sort of- I don't disagree with them on the first set. So it's not a fair comment until we see this.
Well, I agree, but that brings me to another point. Why didn't we get the second set of plans? We are only going forward on what we were sent. So if there was a change of, and it's not Elegant Banquet's fault that we didn't get the second set of plans, we only had the first set of plans. So my colleague, what did he do? He sent the first set of plans to Mass Historic, assuming those were the plans. And they said it was overwhelming the original building, and that they would not agree to this.
When were these, because the last presentation I saw was the first set of plans, so when were these produced?
The building plan, we shipped up last Thursday, I believe.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, please.
It's my understanding that the size of the building itself hasn't changed. The drawing has been brought more to scale. The first drawing, it's the same building, it's just been brought to scale, if I'm not mistaken.
Decrease the size of the building.
The rendering was,
He was trying to show how beautiful it would look as he's an
so we
architect.
kind of drew it bigger and closer versus, this is the same drawing, this is the same plan, the plan has
But
not
this drawing
changed.
became available last Thursday.
Okay,
so
but we
you're
have a
Correct.
new.
But it's board scale.
Yes.
So this is really the first time it's been presented in public?
Yes.
Oh, second.
Well,
Oh,
this
second, I'm sorry,
afternoon.
yeah. Today is the first day that it's presented in public.
Right, and that was
Okay,
done
so
because we
That might
requested
be your
it.
answer why you haven't seen it, because it's really the first time it's really been presented in public.
Well,
And
today,
now I'm sure they'll make a copy.
but see,
available to you.
we went forward based on what we got, and we thought that was what everybody was
And that was
getting.
the right thing to do. That
So,
was
you
the
know,
right
we
thing to
had
do,
no
but
other
now-
choice but to use the first set of drawings.
Absolutely, that was the right thing to do.
I don't understand Mass. You're far better versed with Mass Historical than I am. So Mass Historical said, let's assume that we're still going with the old drawings. They said no, which means the
They
project.
said it was overwhelming. The addition was overwhelming the original building, and they would not approve of it.
So if they don't approve, that stops the
They
project.
said, this is their opinion. Because we are not the owner, the Historic Commission is not the owner of the building, I have to be careful in saying this, this is their opinion, given what we emailed to them.
But we do need Mass Historical's permission
Oh, yes.
before we could transfer it. So whatever ends up happening would have to fit Mass Historical's, it would have to pass Mass Historical to move forward.
That's what I just said.
So doesn't it effectively render it, the whole point, it goes more to the argument made a little bit earlier, that we have to go through the committee process, and I know that's not a town committee, but if the whole concern is whether or not this meets Mass Historical's definition of appropriate, it has to. We can't move forward if it doesn't. It
Right.
cannot move forward until it does. So isn't that the safeguard?
I have to tell you, I'm not all that confident. I mean, we're getting it drips by drip. I mean, you want us and the townspeople to vote for the two articles in less than 10 days. And already, we haven't got the right information to go forward.
So you've made this point before to me, and actually that's how we met. I was actually a volunteer at the Historical Society as a high school student, and that's where we met, Mr. Siska, because you used to volunteer there all the time. Let's take the Stevens Estate out of it. For any building that requires Mass Historical approval, it requires Mass Historical approval, right? And so you can't move forward if it doesn't meet their requirements. So isn't that the safeguard with any project that requires their oversight?
I have to think of that question.
Well, one thing
And-
that is,
Are you answering my question?
yes, well,
Okay.
it ties into it. One of the things.
Are you answering my question?
Can we just get an answer to this question, because I think that's a very important question, and then you make.
Because
a point,
the whole argument is predicated right now over if we let it go, once it's gone, it's gone. Now, first off, by the way, I'm not in favor of selling
I
it.
was adding to that comment.
There's not a comment, I'm asking a question. Do you have the answer to my question, Ms. McGilly?
You know, go ahead.
All right,
Kathy. This
thank
is
you.
I
It's
think
just
an-
getting more confusing. All right, that is one of the issues. The other issue is,
Your knowledge exceeds mine with historic preservation. I just want to understand, because this has to be overseen.
I'm
And
hoping
I'm
I
not
could.
taking away, by the way, I'm not taking away your time for public comment. You have ample opportunity. I'm sure the chair will let you. But as the chair of a historical commission, you are the chair, I'm not so well versed with the policies of Mass Historical. And so if Mass Historical, are you saying that in order for this project to move forward, no matter what, it does require Mass Historical's approval?
it does.
So isn't that the safeguard to protect the very,
I suppose you could say that, but that is not the whole issue why we're not on board with this.
no, I know, I just want to address you because you said you put your points in silos, and I just wanted to respond to that point
Well,
because I
I
don't
think
know
what
the
is
others.
really irritating to us is getting it through the drips and the drabs. If my colleague had not emailed this to Mass Historic, I wouldn't know that Mass Historic would have said that this building, the new addition, is overwhelming to the original building. My point is, everything that is coming fast. We've only known it for 5 weeks. We think there are many more other things that can be done. For example, I know that the trustees of reservation responded yesterday that they would be interested in regarding.
Responded to what?
It was, the trustees of reservations responded to the RFP that they perhaps would be interested in the building.
We don't have an open RFP.
They responded from the trustees.
I heard it was yesterday.
No, they did not respond to the RFP. They pulled the RFP back in January. The second RFP was issued. They did not pull it. They had previously met with Andrew Mailer and Jean Enright, and they.
Was this gentleman's name Mr. Warren?
Yes.
Because that's who I had correspondence with.
Okay, they did not respond to the RFP. We have not received a response from the trustees. We have heard in an email 2 days ago that they may be interested, but we're in the middle of a procurement process.
What they actually said, because I was the recipient of the email, and Phil knew that they had come and taken a look at it, and they did hear that they had some interest.
I found out actually when I got these emails. I knew that there was a desire for me to reach out to the trustees.
And you did hear from someone that they expressed
My
interest.
concern with the
Right.
trustees is
But let
they
me,
had the
let me,
opportunities
but no,
and
let
they
me
were
just
never
finish as
expressed
to
an
what they
interest.
said. What they said in the email, that they felt as though, these are their words, not mine, that the scope was too narrow and felt as though it would work well for them. However, they said they did not want to interfere with the RFP process, but if anything were to change, they wanted it to be known that they were interested.
Okay.
Can I just respond to that for a second, because we issued the RFP? The first RFP, we met with Andrew and Jean Enright met with Kevin Block of the trustees. They met before the first RFP was even issued. They spoke about the project. He was giving it to his land purchase department, whatever they may call it. And, that was it. They never responded to the first RFP. Second RFP was issued. We made a deliberate effort to broaden the second RFP so that if a place like the trustees wanted to put in a proposal, they could. If you look at page 5 of the second RFP, there are 2 bullets that were added that were not in the first RFP. And that is, I could read it to you. One of the uses on page 5 states, be repurposed in another manner that provides public or private use of the facility, that benefits the preservation of the facility and grounds and is acceptable to the town and provides better access to and maintenance of the public trails. So if you wanted to submit an RFP, you could do it under those last 2 bullets that were added to the second RFP because we broadened it. They did not respond. And from what I understand from today's meeting that you answered my question, their interest requires an endowment, which is a $2 to $3 million payment from the town.
Well,
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Is that?
Well, that was a
yes,
question I asked.
what
today at the
happens
Historical
is
Commission meeting.
When you go, well, I can see 4 people aren't interested right away. When you do that,
You're characterizing something that's not true. 2 years ago, I asked Mr. Mailer to reach out to the trustees of the reservation, which he did, and they weren't interested at the time. And then the 2 RFPs went out, and I was very disappointed to hear that they did not respond to either one of those RFPs. But I think now we're in a process where we are going through land procurement law, and it's unfortunate that they didn't respond to the RFPs. But I think at this point, you know, the RFP's out there, we've got to respond it, and we've accepted it. The board, all 5 of us voted to accept it. So we have to see this process through. I mean, so I don't appreciate you saying there's 4 people that's not interested in that. I think you're mischaracterizing us. I think we're all, well, let me just finish. I think we're all 5 of us here want to see the estate preserved. We've got an opportunity potentially to invest $7 to $8 million into the estate, or I'm sorry, 7 you said tonight, $7 million, and restore it to the way it was, the front, and they're not going to change the main mansion. I just think, you know, we really need to consider this. And also, it's nice to hear that they're not only interested in the sale, but leasing it as well. So in a lease, gone is not gone, because the town could, you know, if something would happen, or something where the town would have that, hopefully that right of first refusal, we would negotiate that in to retain the property. So gone is not gone.
And with historic restrictions.
And with historic restrictions.
Which I hope that you would, if should we move forward, I would hope that you would work with us to make sure we identified every possible safeguard, which every meeting I feel like I learn more about Mass Historical, and I feel like just even now better understanding from, and I'm glad you got up to speak, because I always assumed it was more suggestive and not rather binding. So to understand that Mass Historical, actually their decision is binding anyways, isn't that, I mean, that reassures me.
well, I just to be perfectly honest, we had a vote after our meeting. We had a meeting this afternoon, and the feeling of the Historic Commission is that we would ask you respectfully to withdraw both of these amendments again from this meeting. We feel like it's a little too rushed, and we just don't like the whole idea of the town losing the Stevens estate.
But we're not.
Well, you don't know yet. You
was that a
said
public
either a
meeting?
lease or you said a sale, and you don't.
I'm actually, me as a selectman, I'm actually very much only in favor of a lease. If that, I don't know if that
I said that after the
helps
last
or
meeting,
hurts
after
us
Mr.
in
Royce
this
had said
position.
that a lease was,
Yeah, he did.
But we won't know that when we vote on the 2 articles, so you go forward.
Well, if we're all saying that, we can amend the article on the floor of town meeting to just be a lease.
if that makes.
Yeah,
Because
Well-
Ms. Cisco, we do all have the same values, and it's, again, I take real seriously when you say that you have this concern, because you've seen what can happen when there aren't the safeguards put in place.
I've seen it a lot. We've had promises before, and you know, you don't get a promise and a handshake, get it in writing, let me tell you. Don't get it on a handshake.
If it makes you feel better, our first article, the first go-through, not about the Stevens Estate building, but rather about the open space property, it helped to solicit more feedback, because we realized there were a couple blind spots, not because we didn't share the values of maintaining the open space, but the feeling among certain people were, why not incorporate that language directly into the article? So Article 7? What was going to be Article 7 at our regular town meeting?
Now it's 5.
So Article 5 now. What that does is it permanently protects the access to the trails. And so that, to me, the open space, the CR, but that any, so I should say, so it's the Stevens Estate, any leasing or sale of the Stevens Estate would have to include an agreement that protects the public's access. We always approached it from that position, but we didn't include that language originally, not because we didn't share that value, but because we just didn't include that language. We were willing to amend that because it is our values. I mean, that's why we voted unanimously to incorporate that. And so if there are safeguards that you've identified that are already in place, such as Mass Historical, that regardless of whatever article we present, that's there. And if there are other things like a lease instead of a sale, and eliminating the sale language, given that I think the lean of this board is to lease anyways, is that the type
I
of
cannot
movement?
speak for the whole board.
I'm
We
asking you because I
we
respect
only
you.
voted on what is, and what is this afternoon was sale and/or lease. And quite honestly, the rest of the board feels the same way that I do. Once it is out of the town's hands, I mean, notwithstanding what Elegant Banquets has said, but I have seen it before, that certain things start to change, and then this changes, and then that changes. And I have to tell you, quite honestly, the Historic Commission would prefer it to remain in town hands.
Which Elise would accomplish.
Not really. You know, you say you can go up and have trail, I mean, you're saying that, but I would have to think about it. I'm not going to be able to answer on my feet right now and go, yeah, that's right, you know, Elise would accomplish that. I have to think about it. I have to think about the ramifications and all that the other stuff entails. That's another problem I have. We knew this for 5 weeks, and it's like a lot to consume in 5 weeks. You people have worked on this since last autumn. We did not. We've had about 5 to 6 weeks to kind of rush through the whole thing.
You have known about this for at least 3 months.
We have known about it
Since at least
the
March
end
11th.
of March, I would say.
You, at your March 11th meeting, according to one of your board members.
Listen, I'm not here to dispute or pick whether we knew it 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. This is what the Historic Commission represents, and this is what I was told to come tonight and to say. And what I'm going to say to you is, we would wish that you would pull both of these amendments, because we think it's a rush job. And for me to stand here and to say, yes, that's good, no, that's not good, I'm one person. I discuss it with my group. We discuss the ramifications. So I'm not going to give you any quick answer tonight as to, you know, yes, no, yes, no. That's not how we work. We take it back, we chew it over, we look at it. But standing right now, I'm just going to tell you that the commission will not be happy if you go forward and do not pull both of these amendments. We need more time to digest it. The other thing is, which I have heard from a lot of townspeople, is they don't like the idea that voting to give you permission on something that, well, now we know, the gentleman from Elegant Banquets has come, and he is probably, his throat is dry from doing four presentations. I get that. But it's still a rush job from about 5 to 6 weeks ago. And we don't think it's enough time. This is a gem of North Andover. You people are all younger, Rosemary and I, she's younger than me, but we're of an age. People, this is their baby. This is something they love as a town. The fact that you have to spend a few more dollars on it, most people are not as upset as maybe some people on the Selectmen's board is to spend more money. This is something that the people of North Andover love, and they want to hold on to, and they feel that if it's out of their hand, other things are going to happen to it. And that's what I am asking you, to withdraw both amendments at town meeting. And I mean, we have no leverage. We have nothing behind us to make you do that, but that's what we're asking you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Siska.
Now, may I finish my comment that I think you were starting to say, Mass Historic will only review the project from the property owner, meaning the town.
That's correct.
They will not, unfortunately, review it from you. They want it complete. They don't want to get it in piecemeal.
Or in conceptual form. They
Or
won't
unfortunately,
accept it
in
that way
conceptual
either.
form. They want complete design and plans. I don't know if there's an opportunity to go back and forth or meet with them. What are you looking for? And then you do the plan. I don't know that. But what I was saying, what I was trying to say is, and it was important to the question that you were answering, it has to come from the town of North Andover,
Yes.
not from Eloquent
Can I
Bank.
just make
Exactly.
that point? But at town meeting, we're not voting on this plan. We're voting on.
No, I know.
Let me
Permission.
finish, please.
Okay.
We're not voting on this plan. We're voting on an opportunity to sell or lease the building. No matter what we do, whether, you know, some other thing happens, we still need that permission, right? So.
We do, and that was to the answer of Phil's question, and that,
But my point being that the Historical Commission is not being asked in a rush job to do this in the next 3 weeks, or the State Historical Commission, because there's going to be ample opportunity to review these plans and to go through the project and make sure that the project is compliant with historical standards. So it's not a rush job that we're doing. This is just the beginning of the process. This is the second rendition. It's not, we're just at the first part of the road here. We've got a long way to go with this project. So I just want to make that point that it's not a rush job in the sense that this project has got a long path ahead of it to go through. It's got to go through planning board, it's got to go through historical commission, state historical commission, conservation. There's a lot of checks and balances here. So this is just the beginning of the process. It's nowhere near the final steps.
I understand that, but what most people's concerned who have called me up is the fact that if they go ahead and vote both amendments, then you people make the decision for the vast majority of the citizens of North Andover, and I've heard they don't want that.
That's what we're elected to do.
Well, what can I say? It's a project, it's an issue that's near and dear to many, many, many people's hearts in this town, and I think that's what's bothering a lot of people. It's not the fact that maybe this will happen or maybe another RFP will come in. It's the fact that if they vote for both articles, the second one gives the 5 selectmen permission to do what they think is best, and the citizens, have no legal recourse if they don't like what you're choosing or whatever. I think they feel like kind of their hands are tied behind their backs once they give you permission. And that's truly, quite honestly, the nub of the issue, which is a part of this problem.
But then that's always going to be the issue then, because it's never going to have any.
Well, I understand that, but
that's the only way the process.
Most issues, though, aren't this close, near, and dear to the hearts of people of North Andover. I truly mean that. People think of it as my house, kind of. They walk in, those beautiful oak panels. They took it to heart. They did the override. And I don't feel I'm being melodramatic when I say that, but I'm just telling you, part of the problem is when they vote on both of those, they like the first one. I'll tell you that very much. They like the idea of cutting out 130 acres forever in perpetuity and protecting it from the lake. That is not a problem. It's the Second Amendment that's the second article is the problem. The problem that once they vote on that, it's out of the general public's hands. It's 5 people who are going to decide how to go forward, and that is a problem.
And Lori, please correct me if I'm wrong, and she spoke very well at the meeting, and thank you for attending, is the fact that once we vote, that even if for whatever reason this did not work out well with Eloquent Bankers, for whatever reason they chose not to go forward, that we've rescinded that right that the Board of Selectmen could sell or lease to anybody else. That's how they understood the article. That the town.
No, I mean, you guys can answer the question just as well as I can, I think.
But the way the article is written.
The way the article is written, it's for sale or lease of the property.
Right.
With a bunch of restrictions on it.
Right, but it's not.
Sale or lease to Elegant Banquets, it's sale or lease of the property.
Exactly. So my point is, and maybe I'm not saying this clearly enough, that if Eloquent Banquets moves on to another project, say Wellesley, and say, we love it, but we're moving on, that by this town meeting vote, the citizens of North Andover have given up. They don't even know what's coming. At least with this, they have an idea of what's coming. And you had agreed that that is true. Once we vote that, anything's game. Anything and everything's game.
Right, but to clarify that, not everything's game.
Within the restrictions, I agree.
The Board of Selectmen have the ability to sell or lease the property to another entity.
The fact is, we have one bid. We would have to go through the whole procurement process again.
Right.
And we could not choose any of them. I mean, we
Yeah, but that's the way democracy works. What are you going to do?
We got one bidder.
That's the way it works.
No, you're missing this. Chairman Keene's point is, it starts with us anyways.
Yeah.
So we could choose not to move forward with the procurement. I just, for the public, I can't reconcile with the repeated argument, which is you don't trust us to negotiate a deal, but you trust us to run it. And that's, I mean, a conversation for later on, but I mean, the people who run it are saying it's really difficult to run it right now. And I think we're going to dive, and so I guess your point was more historic, and I think we've talked about it, so I don't need to keep you at the podium.
Yeah, I would like to carry on the meeting. I think we understand Ms. Siska's position.
Well, I just want to let you know that, we will be speaking at town meeting, obviously, so.
Okay. Do we have any other comments? Thank you.
I do, and I'll try to be brief. Outside of the whole debate about...
Your name and address,
Oh, I'm
please.
sorry. My name is Kathy Keith. I live at 605 Osgood Street. Outside of the whole debate about whether or not this moves forward. I just have some like technical questions. So the 137 acres that is being protected, is that everything all surrounding it and just excluding that little 15 acres in the middle? Like the, you know,
Yes.
Diagram, I know you probably don't see it from there, but this is what we are proposing, Article 6.
here?
Article 6 would disturb all of this property.
what's this here?
This is where the driveway?
No,
Oh, no, this is across the street, right? Oh, no, this, I don't know.
Is this like the house property and all the other?
Yes, yeah.
Where's the carriage path that goes here? I live here.
The carriage path, I mean, going up to the estate?
To right, if this is like the
Oh, I
house.
see what you're saying, yeah,
If
yeah.
this is
that would
Osgood
be-
Street, and these are
yeah, that
the
would be-
properties.
That would be over here. This would be the carriage path right here, right? This is the carriage house, right? And then
So
that
the carriage path
path-
is right here, that goes to
Yeah.
Edgewood.
Yes, yeah, yeah, that
Okay.
would go there.
So this is protected,
Mhm.
and these are owned by private people.
Well, this is owned by North Andover. This is owned by North Andover. And then this is all owned by North Andover. This
Okay,
all
so is that gonna be under like conservative, or are you, will this ever be buildable, is my question?
No. Right, I mean, this is part of this is part of the 15 acres, right? This piece that goes down here? Because it goes down, it includes the gatehouse, right? So the gatehouse is down.
Carriage house.
Well, no, the gatehouse.
Okay, where's the gatehouse?
The gatehouse is down the bottom of the hill,
Down here.
right here.
I'm just worried, you said that this is the 137 acres. I'm wondering about
Right.
this,
So
is this ever
And then
being
this
able?
property is here, but it's
Right.
what's in scope, right?
I'm just worried about the property outside the 137. That's owned by the town of North
And that would be
Andover.
continued.
Can that be built upon?
No. This is, right, I'm not,
That's, the bottom part is
This-
already preserved, I believe.
right, this was.
So it runs
this-
parallel to the carriage path, which
this
has
is not-
like
this is
a
not
lake
only
running
brick.
through it.
But this is all part of North
And
Andover.
it comes out to
Preserved,
the.
right,
It's
preserved.
preserved?
Yeah, we did a
Preserved,
conservation.
Can we
restriction
try and,
on that.
like, contain this conversation?
I just am worried
Now-
what's outside the 137 acres that's going to be protected from building. If there's anything else that can happen, like underneath that, between the Stevens Estate and Osgood Street. Right now you have houses.
Oh, so right in the front, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's already?
Isn't it Warren Hill? That she's talking
Well, White Hill's
No.
on the
Going
side.
straight down Why- to the no.
Driveway, is that what
Talking about Osgood Hill.
Yeah, White Hill is.
Osgood Hill or the Ousler property. The
Osgood Hill is part of it
White
already.
Hill is over here, yeah, this is all.
I'm not talking about Wire Hill at
I
all.
know, but, yeah, but that's the property over here that we're looking at. This is Edgewood, and this would be White Hill.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about Edgewood, I'm talking about this property right here, this area.
Are you talking near the caretaker's cottage at the bottom, down in that one?
You know, the Oosler's house, between the Oosler's house
That was property
and,
we just recently
yeah.
purchased.
Yeah,
This
we
was
did.
property.
It's all, so nothing can be,
All protected.
so that's my second question, is the only access to this place is
The
that
drive.
one driveway in and out?
Correct.
So, and so nothing through Edgewood, nothing off of Osgood, okay. You guys worried about traffic at all? You're not worried about traffic?
So I can give you an idea of what kind of traffic we generate. Usually, our average wedding's around 180. It's 2 people per car. And about 40% come by some sort of bus because they're from the hotel. So very, very little traffic. It's all peak times. It's Saturday, 5 o'clock. Friday, 5 o'clock. Sunday, 2 o'clock. And it's not a lot. We have traffic studies in our other places.
Okay.
And we will have to go through a traffic study with, as you were rightfully
The planning
saying,
board.
we have to go through all these routes anyway. But, and you'll need access to that, but it's not a lot.
Osgood Street's getting pretty hugely built right now with Amazon on one end, the whole huge development in front of French Farm, and now we're going down here, and I live on Osgood Street, so I'm kind of worried about that.
You noticed traffic today from wedding to today, the capacity is what?
It's the same capacity, yeah,
Same
exactly.
capacity. So do you notice traffic now? I mean, is it a problem?
Was there a wedding tonight? Is that what you're saying?
No, no,
Oh,
I'm asking if.
I thought you meant
in
today,
general,
okay.
When there's weddings there, do you notice obviously you notice additional traffic, but is it a problem?
I'd noticed the noise,
You notice the noise?
so,
Which, by the way, is a good thing, because the tent has a band. All buildings are designed so that we don't allow the windows to be open for 2 reasons. One is to contain the noise, and the second reason is to contain the air conditioning.
Mhm.
So somebody doesn't have a window.
That's what I assumed.
The only noise you might hear is you might hear a violinist or a harpist, when they do the battles.
Mhm.
But there's no dancing, there'll never be dancing outside, not like there is today.
Might
So
be a
the
little
noise will go down.
horn banging when the bride and groom leave. There
Yeah.
might be a little clapping.
And just the
All
last
part of the
question.
fun, yes.
Just the last question, I think there might be others here that are concerned about the access to the paths and everything, and the little parking lot off to the side. When there is an event going on, and you think they're only going to be at night, like Friday nights,
It's possible Sunday afternoon.
and there won't be any restrictions coming in and out for
No
park?
restrictions at all, none, zero. Anybody that wants to use the path, there'll be parking set aside specifically for people that want to use the path. And they can come anytime they want, drive up and down anytime they want.
And also, can I just to speak, so the article that we amended, and I don't know if it shows up, actually requires that whatever, if you approve the article at town meeting, it will still require, even if if Mr. Royce didn't want to answer in the affirmative, we can't enter an agreement that doesn't protect access to the paths.
So-
Assuming you vote,
yeah.
unless town meeting, for some inexplicable reason, chooses to remove that language. So just as an additional safeguard, it's actually, well, I appreciate your sentiment.
Yeah.
It's actually out of your hands because we as a board are asking the town to require that any agreement we go into guarantee that access.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dave Brown, 35 Old Farm Road, and for full disclosure, a member of the Stevens Estate Advisory Board. I want to take this in a slightly different direction just because I have some questions on Mr. Royce's presentation. This is an investment of about $7 million. You must have done some market research that shows you that that's got the return you need in order to raise that money, right? Because I think in your proposal you said you're going to try to get financing for 90% of it. So I'm wondering, I did a quick look on the town website. I don't think there's any market research there. Are you willing to share that with us? No. Well, or at least the conclusions of it? Okay, I understand why you might have that. Well, here's where I'm going with that, right? Yeah, let me explain why I'm asking the question. So, right now, I'd like to believe that no matter how beautiful you make this, there's only so many people that are going to get married over the next few years, right? So in order for this to be successful, you've got to essentially steal those customers from somebody else, right? You're not going to grow the overall market for weddings, much as we might like that, but you're not, right? So you have to have a compelling reason for somebody who's maybe was going to go down there, or go over there, they're going to come here.
I'll give you an example, because it's a really good question. There is 2 facilities that we opened. One was in Monroe, Connecticut. And there has been no population
Mr. Royce,
increase.
sorry, could I ask you to stand, get here for these answers? Sorry, it just occurred to me that maybe those at home are not hearing you. Thank you.
I just think the question, you said steal, you make it sound negative.
I'm sorry.
It's a free market.
Yeah.
It is a free market.
That's a bad word, but what I mean is to,
Make it sound like
Hello?
he's
Yeah,
stealing
that's it.
from
I
someone
got it.
else.
sorry, bad choice of words.
People have a choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
I understood what he
But he
meant.
has to compete, right? He has to-
Competitors, you're worried about
Yeah,
competitors
right.
having that information.
I'm just- Yeah, and I respect that, but obviously, I'm sorry, just to fully, so first of all, I apologize for that word, that's,
No, it's okay.
I didn't mean it in that
I didn't take
fashion.
offense.
I didn't think you would. It's just, he has to get those customers away
Correct.
from his competitors. Right?
Okay, so here's the answer.
Yeah, okay.
Okay? So we opened up a building in Monroe, Connecticut, and in Monroe, Connecticut and the surrounding area, there was no population increase. None, right? So no new people moved in the neighborhood.
Right.
We ended up taking $5 million worth of wedding business out of that market.
Right,
Now,
so-
why? So you say, how do you do that? What
Right.
makes you so good? Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the way we do it. Is a lot of the business that is being done in hotels and in country clubs and places where they went out of the area because they couldn't find a good place. They might go to Cape Cod or they might go to Newport, Rhode Island. If they see a facility that's closer to home that they really like, they would prefer to do that.
Sure.
Because, so we pick up from all over. We pick up from everybody. We did the same thing in Simsbury, Connecticut. No population increase, $4 million we pulled out of the market. There's no doubt in my mind that this is going to take from all kinds of people in all kinds of areas, including people that would normally go out of the area. That's where it's going to come
Okay.
from.
So you have to be confident enough to convince the banker, right, that, or whoever's going to
Yep.
finance you.
That and a
you're
personal
right.
guarantee. Yeah, no, but yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. That's just basically a feasibility
Thank
question.
you. Okay,
Yes.
great, thank you.
And I apologize, I didn't mean anything by that.
No apology necessary.
It's just, it was the word, I don't like the negative.
I couldn't think of a synonym for that.
Do we
No,
have
thanks.
any other questions? I know I'm cognizant that we've been at this now for an hour and a half, but I want everyone to have an opportunity. Please, sir.
My name is Dave Rand, I live at 280 Dale Street, and I have made myself known to you before. And so I won't beat that dead horse again. What I would like to bring to your attention is the fact that there are going to be those of us who are going to be at town meeting who are going to bring to the fore exactly what's happening here and exactly what's happened with the Historical Society this afternoon, that there are just too many unanswered questions. If the Historical Commission of the state of Massachusetts has a say about what can and what cannot be put on that facility, then those are the people we have to deal with first. We have to bring before them a plan for the Stevens estate that they will accept. If they won't accept it, we can't build it. And so we're, in my opinion, we're kind of doing things backwards. And so what, I appreciate all these meetings because they keep me young and it gives me a chance to get out at night. But I can't hear half of what's going on, but that's beside the point. But what I'm getting at is we will be bringing this to the floor of the town meeting. That we think you're doing, the procedure is going backwards, and we'd like to go forward. We'd like it to go so that everybody in the town understands it, and everybody accepts it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? Okay. Oh. Thank you, Adele. Good to see you.
My name's Adele Gallacher. I live at 120 Sandra Lane. So I just had one question. If we want to preserve, if people think that they want to preserve this building or the town owns this building, why can't we get a committee or something to come in to, to make this not a wedding venue, something else that benefits our town, like offices or run, if people wanted to have meetings. I'm not sure why we're not using those facilities, that space, and having people rent it out that live in our community. So that's I don't know, it's such a great building. Everyone talks about what a great building is, so have people come back in that are in the town. I don't care about if the weddings are making money, yes, but you still have to go out and find them. But there's a ton of people in town that might want to rent out a space there, and you could preserve it. There's so many people that would want to preserve that building or volunteer their time to save that building. So that's just what my opinion is. I mean, I see that building every single day for the last 6 years. I walk on those trails, and it is a great building. There could be so much potential inside. Some big company come in, I don't know. But I think if you keep it local and people band together, that might help also. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. I think we'll move on then from this topic. I mean, this was nothing for us to vote on. This was simply an opportunity for us to have a public presentation from Elegant Banquets and have questions answered.
I did want to follow up on a discussion that we had last meeting.
Okay.
As we were discussing, we were talking about the role that bartenders play at this facility, and the acknowledgement that they are public employees and that they are employees that are being tipped for performing their task as public employees. Have we gotten any type of feedback or guidance on whether or not those employees are allowed to accept tips?
You did. Okay, well, I was on
Ms. Savage
vacation.
was on vacation last week, yes.
Oh, okay, that's right, that's right.
I spoke with town council, and it is not an ethics violation because of the wage laws. So
Okay.
tipped employees that's part of their wages, because they get paid below minimum wage.
Okay.
So according to her, it is not a violation.
Restaurant workers.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They're classified as,
Yeah.
But specifically as, the only reason why is because we left that last meeting saying, well, just because we
Yeah,
say
and I
it.
apologize for not filling you guys in on that information.
No,
I did
it should-
check with
it should be
her,
discussed here.
And it was, and she said it's not an issue.
Now, in other conversations, we've talked about, this is unrelated to the tips, inconsistencies with billing and budgeting there. Have we addressed those inconsistencies?
on the billing issues?
Inconsistencies with how we are charging fees to certain individuals?
Addressed it to a point, well, we haven't been taking any bookings, of course. We just opened up the moratorium to start taking bookings again. So it hasn't been discussed on future bookings. There is a schedule that's put together for the fees. And it was my understanding, we would have to change the policy to not give the director the permission to adjust those fees based on the event and what the timing of the event, whether it's to fill a slot, whether it's off-season. If she has a weekend that she has no events and she's just trying to fill those slots, she gives discounts.
Have there been inconsistencies with how we've applied the fee in a flag-raising type way?
It's hard to determine how she comes up with the discounts.
From you as the person who provides oversight, though? For instance, do we charge people for the same type of services each time, or do we not charge people for certain services in some instances?
It's all over the place.
It's all over the place?
Yes.
So there are some people who
Get
win in this and
certain
some
thing-
people
right.
that don't?
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the time. Thanks.
Yeah, we can't talk about that. Yeah, it will be something that we'll have to discuss as a policy decision, not in a public meeting.
Is that an executive session type conversation then?
No.
How do we as selectmen, how can we?
I can inform you of new policies and bring a new policy to the board for your approval.
This is more
and
though,
vote.
it speaks to, there are so many different possibilities, right? We as a town, we as a Board of Selectmen could decide not to pursue this article at town meeting. We as a Board of Selectmen could ask town meeting to give us the right to sell or lease. We as a Board of Selectmen could get the right to lease. Or we as a Board of Selectmen on June 19th will be responsible for overseeing the site.
Right.
What's the vehicle for overseeing it then? If we can't, how do we dive into?
We would have to work a plan in place to decide what we're going to do if this articles do not come to fruition and pass at town meeting. We are going to have to review that and come up with a plan on how we're going to proceed in keeping the estate running, whether we keep it running the way it is or we restructure it. We already made the decision at the last Board of Selectmen's meeting that we're not going to renew the liquor license on
Yes.
December 31st. So that's a new plan that we have to put in place. We have to write new policies to put in place for that point, which will then provide new structure of fees, which will, in my opinion, is going to eliminate that ability to waive fees, to do any type of, we're going to have a fee structure in place and we'll have to stand by it. There'll be no discounts other than to, within the policy which we have presently, we give a discount to town residents.
So I think a lot of people, because when I have conversations with people, it is hardly so skewed one way or another about what their position is. But I often have to explain my impetus, which is that, for the past several months, we've had these especially deep conversations about just, it's in general, how you as a municipality can run a facility like this. And so I think it's important, it's certainly a relevant part of the discussion. as we talk about the future,
Yep.
every possible option. And a real option is that we may still have no choice but to operate the facility.
Correct.
Not necessarily in the same way, but to operate it on June 19th and thereafter.
Yep.
And so I want to understand more about, you're one of the best people in the region. I mean, it's why your budget, in the field that you're in, it's why your budget consistently wins awards, and I will not step on any toes with that. But I want to better understand, and I don't know if the public perhaps realizes that they could also ask these questions. How are the winners and the losers decided? How was it decided if you get charged this or if you get charged this right now? Right now.
That will be a policy that
No,
we'll have to.
but right now, how is that decided?
I think it's the discretion of
It's
the
just-
director.
Right.
So it is
is.
100% at the discretion of somebody
Yep.
who,
Who is a director, who we hired as the director of the estate. We trusted, no different than the board is voted and elected. We hired somebody to give them that discretion.
and have we found that there are people that get charged for certain services?
I don't know, I can't answer that right
I'm not,
Yeah.
have you found that there are people who get charged for certain services and other people don't get charged?
Yes. Yep.
Now, as a
And that's-
taxpayer, I mean, that's outrageous.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
not a
we
statement
can't-
aimed at
yeah.
you.
I don't think this is the right venue for us to discuss
I don't,
this
so that's what
right
I'm
now.
asking though, is
I know.
where do we as a select board get that venue? And I'm not,
That
I'm
would
not,
be a report that I, as a town manager and finance director, can provide to the board, and it can be discussed at a
So-
later time. We're just digressing into something
Yeah,
that
I
is an
realize
area-
that this is very uncomfortable and we're
Yes.
treading on
Thin ice.
thin
here.
ice here.
Yep.
But I think the only reason I let it go on for the couple of minutes I did is to highlight, I guess, one of the points, which is, it is not appropriate for us to be operating a venue
facility.
like this, in my opinion, because we have issues like this. We have these issues, which are extremely important, but impossible for us to discuss in a public meeting because,
Yep.
but as a taxpayer, I want to know where my money is being spent and how we're managing the budget, and this is a part of it, and then maybe where you're going to have to make all of the financials, the same as somebody can look up and see what I bought my house for. They can
Well,
look
it is
up
all
and see
public,
what
right.
somebody booked the Stevens estate
It's
for. I mean,
public
it's going to
records.
have to be much more publicly available with significant oversight, and completely transparent process to the public, because this is not acceptable to think that
I
some
don't
people
think-
are paying one price and other people are paying another price. I mean,
And to our acting town
that's
manager's
not-
point, my questioning is in no way a reflection of her, because I really do believe she does a phenomenal job. And I think that the chair hit it on the head, that there are some people who get charged and some people who don't for certain services, for a facility that we were told is a general public good. So,
I guess I just, if I could, just make a small note. We really have two issues here, and I think that's ultimately the problem. And they're both about obligations, and they're both about ramifications moving forward. One deals with operating a business. The other is the preservation of a physical asset. Those happen to be interwoven together. You can't separate, you can't do one without affecting the other. And so the proposal that's in front of us is a solution to both of those. And the question that I think the citizens need to weigh is, how do we solve the obligation challenges in running this business? And how do we make sure that the obligations to preserve that estate historically are stood up to? And I think we've got a proposal here that's walked through a lot of pieces of it. I think we've vetted a lot of the concerns. There's a lot of anxiety, but when you drill down to the facts, I think folks can kind of see for themselves there's a solution that we can take action with, and there's also an alternative to take no action. Each of those have ramifications, and I will state very clearly and firmly that I see this opportunity with Elegant Banquets, it's like a river coming by us of opportunity. We either jump in and swim with it, and we have opportunity to deal with that because of our process in vetting it, or we let it go by us. So again, I appreciate the discussion tonight, but I think pulling it together for the citizenry, that's really what it's about. It's the business and the physical structure that have to be addressed with this. Thank you.
Any other comments on Stevens Estate before we move on to our other items in our agenda? Okay. Let's get into the consent items then that we have not. First one is, yes, another meaty topic. Town meeting warrant article, discussion and recommendations. Sorry, let me look at my computer reboot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rand. So, I guess a question, I mean, obviously the first three are zoning articles related to 1600 Osgood. We have not really talked in detail about these in our meeting yet. I know the planning board has, and I assume people are following planning board public hearing if they are interested in the details.
Have they voted yet? I don't see the.
So I was just gonna say, they've not closed their public hearing yet. Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, in our normal fashion, we wait for the planning board to vote a recommendation. So I guess my opinion would be that we wait and make our recommendation before town meeting, at our meeting before town meeting. If you guys are amenable to that. I mean,
It would be nice to.
it would be
give
nice.
guidance,
It would be nice to
but
have
I
recommendations
agree with
on
the
the
precedent, so
actual
I'll
warrant.
go with my colleagues if there's no strong feeling.
I think the interesting, there is no strong feeling, so I think it would be good to hear from them, but there's no like real passion to this, so I think that it's fair to say that we're reasonably okay with it, but it'd be interesting to hear from the planning board, so.
Yeah. Okay, Article 4 is regarding the sewer line. I guess, is the planning board making a recommendation on that article?
Oh, we got paperwork on
sewer
that
line?
today.
Because I didn't think that they were, but there's a slot for it, so.
I added that in because we
Recommended that they
had said
review
that
it.
they would be
Oh, okay.
making a recommendation.
All right, if they're going to, then we'll wait on that one too. Okay.
But would you speak a little bit to what we received tonight, just so that the public is aware
Oh, yeah.
of the agreement?
Good idea.
That would be great.
Madam Chair, I did receive the signed letter from Hillwood Company, which is giving basically an outline of their commitment to participate in paying 1/3 for the sewer project, which is, and of course, there's quite a few stipulations, which we have the same stipulations. It all's going to depend on whether these articles actually pass at town meeting, they get all their permitting through planning and conservation and zoning, it all, as long as everything passes through, all the boards of the town, as well as town meeting, they're in full agreement to pay 1/3 costs of the $7 million, which is $2.333 million. So I feel confident, and they actually are giving us a signed letter saying this is their commitment, and once we get closer to the actual process, we'll get more formal commitment and an agreement signed and things like that between the town, and they'll work with us to file the application with Mass Works as well. Yep.
Great. Okay. Any other questions on, or comments on Article 4?
So I would be willing, I think, to, if we wanted to, I would be willing to vote on this before the planning board, not because I disrespect their role, but because this is financial. And really isn't about zoning changes. I mean, I think that we have, in general, we certainly have the capability to make the decision. I suppose we could wait, but I would actually bet that perhaps the planning board might be waiting for guidance from us, and I don't know that.
It's your article.
And I would vote on Articles 1 through 4
It's the
as
board's
well.
article.
Except, we don't know if the planning board is gonna make any modifications to them between now and town meeting, or is this it, there's no chance for modifications?
I do not believe there's going to be any modifications
No.
tonight. I mean, their public
Well, why
hearing's
they
still
have-
open, but Article 4 is your article, not the planning board.
But we still have to go on record as recommending favorable action on
Right,
it.
that's what I'm saying. You can vote on that because it's.
That's what I mean, it's,
Yeah, I think 1 through 3, technically they could change because it's the planning board's articles and they haven't closed their public hearing.
And Madam
So out
Chair.
of respect for the planning board,
Right.
normally we wait until they make their recommendations, and then we we take
Right.
their recommendations into consideration.
1 through 3, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think 4, I agree, I would be fine to make our recommendation.
Can I make
since
one more
it's-
comment? I just want the public and the board to realize that it is $7 million for the sewer line. The town itself is not going to borrow $7 million. We're only going to borrow our share, and we will only borrow it if this all passes. So there is no way that this money will even be contemplated to go in front of the bonding agency and the rating agency until everything is signed, sealed, everything's passed, and we've got all the other pieces of the funding.
Should that be clearly, I haven't read the entire explanation yet, but I think what you just said should be clearly articulated in the explanation. Let me just read through it.
I
haven't read
thought we did, let me,
it. You may have, I haven't read it.
It says the appropriation is
it's all
contingent upon-
contingent. Yep, it is all contingent, and it will only be borrowing our portion. And who knows, by the time this actually comes to fruition, whether it will be even the full amount that would be borrowed. We could probably cover some of it with retained earnings, based on the retained earnings balances that we've been having on the sewer.
So we may also want to put in there that it's also contingent upon passing Articles 1 through 3, maybe, or that the project moves forward, the proposed project moves forward, because all we have is the appropriation contingent upon receipt of funds equaling 2/3 of the cost of the project. And we may want to add in there language that also says, in the explanation, I'm saying, what you just said, and also that the project moves forward based on the passage of the previous 3 articles, or something, just
Okay.
a clear explanation so people
Yep.
understand that.
Can modify that a little bit before we
Yeah.
go. We'll modify that before we go to print. Okay.
Okay. So do I hear a motion to,
Madam Chair, I'd motion approval, favorable action.
Can I clarify something? If the first 3 don't pass, wouldn't you just withdraw this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Laura, you're always thinking.
So you don't
You're
even.
one step ahead of us all the time.
Second.
any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, I recommend favorable action. Now we're on to Article 5. This is 153 acres.
Yeah, but it's a
Total.
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 You're transferring.
Oh,
a portion of
sorry.
them.
I just, I was like, wait a second.
It's 137.01 or less.
Oh, a portion, right,
Yeah.
sorry, thank you. Okay, obviously, we've had tons of discussion on this, so do I hear a motion about our recommendation for,
Move that the Board of Selectmen recommend approval on Article 5.
recommend favorable? Second. All in favor? Aye.
Sorry, I was trying to-
Any opposed?
And I would be no, just because I feel as though it needs to come back for town meeting after the decision's made.
Okay, motion passes 4-1. And Article 6. It sounded like in the previous discussion, most of us have said at one point or another that we would prefer leasing it, and they seem willing to lease it, so do I hear a motion to?
Madam Chair, I motion that we amend the article so as to reflect the board's ability, or to reflect the desire to only allow us as selectmen to enter into a lease for the property and to remove the term sale and all references throughout the potential of sale.
You would do this,
So-
not wait till town meeting, you would do this now?
What has gone?
Well, I was assuming we could do the same thing we did before last town meeting, which was vote that we would do that on the floor of town meeting, so that everyone's aware in the public that we have full intentions to do that.
Yes.
Okay,
Right, but we're
so,
not changing this.
right, we can't change this
Yeah,
piece
that's
of
fine.
paper, we can only change it on town meeting floor. Okay, so motion made.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion on that?
I think it just equips us, like you said, where we leave this meeting tonight, we speak for the next 2 weeks before town meeting and explain to the public that we are only asking for the ability to lease.
All right,
And I think it was pretty clear, actually, I think it was very helpful, because as you very elegantly went through the process with the historic preservation, the biggest concern I heard over and over and over is make sure that that's protected in some way. And so with the lease, ultimately, we're the backstop, we're the safety net to that. So I really appreciate all the comments here, because I think that puts the town in a stronger position if we do structure with a lease. So, absolutely.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
And I am no, but I do like the lease better, I'll say that. But for the same reason, I really feel as though that the people should, whatever our decisions are, they should come back at town meetings. But I do
Okay,
like lease
4 to
better.
1. Sorry.
No, I'm done.
Okay.
I just want to be clear.
And so,
Given those changes, Madam Chair, I would motion favorable action on Article 6 as amended.
I'll second.
any further discussion? I think we've all discussed it.
Discuss this one.
Yes, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I'll vote yes on that because I like the amended part of it. But yeah.
Great.
Okay,
Awesome,
great.
unanimous.
Unanimous vote. Okay.
I think I did.
I think you did back, I think you did, and
No,
I guess I shouldn't do this, but I'm gonna do it because I know that this wasn't your intention.
It was just on the amendment.
So you
I did
voted.
it backwards.
favorable action.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Then I guess I'll vote.
You wanted to vote for my amendment, which would have stricken the sale, but you still are opposed to the whole article, even though it no longer has sale.
Right.
Yes.
So
So
the first article that was brought forward was to amend it to get rid of the sale. You were in favor of that because you voted against it.
Oh, golly jeepers. I preferred the lease.
Okay, so the amendment,
That's what he said first.
The motion was to amend on the floor of town meeting, Article 6, to remove the words sale.
any reference to
Yes.
sale.
And just have a lease.
That you would want.
So, thank you. Thank you for correcting me. I think you all knew what I was trying to say, but
So
perhaps
you are in favor of that?
of the lease, just, so the
That
amendment.
amendment, okay,
Yes.
so that's a
So that's
unanimous.
unanimous, okay.
And then the second vote was a recommendation on Article 6, and you're not in favor?
I'm not in favor of that.
Right,
Okay.
so we have that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your friendly amendment in my direction only.
No, because I was like that, we were doing what you wanted, I know that.
I did it backwards. That's okay. I do things backwards sometimes.
Okay, the next item is a waiver of all permit fees associated with construction of senior center and recreation complex.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. And now we're on consent item D, request of neurofibromatosis, Northeast to use Salem, Ingalls, Forest, Boxford, Foster, Winter, and Dale Streets on September 14th, 2019 for the Coast to the Cure bike ride starting 7 a.m. in Gloucester. Oh, geez.
They're all move approval.
Second.
I think again, a great cause, and
Yeah.
God bless them for doing it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Motion to move into licensing, anyone?
I'll move to open meeting of North Andover Licensing Commission.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we just have two things tonight. The first is request from Dan Clapp on behalf of 1634 Madry. This is an event at the Stevens Coolidge on June 16th. I believe that's Father's Day, and we've got all the sign-offs in here from police and fire. Can we use that as state?
Chair, I'll move approval.
Do I have a
A
second?
second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor? Sir?
I just think that it's really cool that they come and continue to do this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a meadery, it's not like the typical beer or even cider, and so it's neat that a place that's out of Ipswich is coming to show their crafts. So.
People have
Really cool.
responded, yeah.
So this is actually a second license for that day, right? We already approved the license for that day for one of the breweries, I believe, right?
Yes, yep.
So this is the second license, so there'll be two options.
So they'll be not quite as long as the line.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Phil, they don't have a cidery for you.
However, so the meadery is doing a whole tour of North Andover that day. They are going to be from 11 to either 1 or 2. They'll be at the Wine Connection having a free tasting, which will happen to coincide with the opening of both the farmers market and the artisan market. So it really is a day to come and hang out downtown, and
Cool.
so
It's happening.
have your mead.
All right. Oh,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. And the other is a request from Smolak Farms for a one-day wine and malt license for a fundraiser on June 20th from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Again, we've got all the sign-offs in our package.
Move approval.
Second.
Will this be in the tent or the barn, or do we know where the venue is?
Let's see here. We were just looking at it a second ago, so appreciate that. By the way, it has been nice that seems to have calmed down. They seem to have sorted that out with those adjustments
Yeah.
with the tents and so forth. It's, tent, yes.
Okay.
It is a tent. And all has been going well there, so knock on wood. I'll hear a motion.
You already got one.
Oh, sorry, yes, thank you.
Anyone second?
Yeah, we got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Pass. Motion to move out of licensing?
Motion to move out of licensing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Go.
Anything from the town manager?
Yes, I do. I have a couple things. There'll be a 911 alert went out today because there'll be a prescribed burn notice for the trustees of the reservations. It will be conducted on June 4th, which is tomorrow, with the partnership of the North Andover Fire Department. It's also, of course, depending on the weather. If it's, the weather isn't cooperating, if it's windy, if it's as windy as it was today, I would assume that they're not going to be doing this. But they do this annually, and the notice has gone out. I just noticed that it went out at 6 o'clock today to everybody, so that if you see the smoke or anything, because it is a pretty large area that they'll be doing this.
Do we know the time?
Stevens Estate. That's the
Yeah.
problem.
Do we know the time that it's going to be done?
They do not have the time. I don't know if the time is on, let me open up the actual 911 and see if it tells us what time.
I listened to it.
I'm pretty
It
sure
didn't.
it didn't.
No. I didn't hear
It
it.
doesn't say any time.
It says the hill will be closed to the public during burning.
Right, so I would say for the whole day, probably. I would guess that they're going to close it down for the whole day, unfortunately, because, it's a big area, they're going to be burning.
I go there at 6:10 in the morning. It's going to be closed.
Well, no, they'll be open at 6. I think you can
All
get
right.
in there at 6:10. I
I
think
don't know if I
so.
can sleep in tomorrow or not.
Yeah, maybe not.
Use it as an excuse.
Yeah. And then the second piece of news I have is that I've confirmed with the S&P that they have, again, continue to keep us at the AAA bond rating, and they've reaffirmed that.
Congratulations.
Yep, outlook is
Wonderful.
stable, very strong management, strong budget flexibility, strong liquidity. So they're very happy with how the town is proceeding, and we'll get the bond sale. We've got quite a few responses, so we'll get the results of the bond sale later this week, and it looks very favorable in our way as far as getting good interest rates and things like that. So
Great.
we've got another good year of AAA.
Awesome.
Yep.
On that note, perhaps I can share something that we received. We got
Free?
last week from the Government Finance Officers Association. We are pleased to notify you that your comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ending 2018 qualifies for GFOA's Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. The Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in governmental accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by a government and its management. So thank you, Lynn, for
You're welcome.
such a wonderful job.
Thank you, Lynn.
You do to us.
It's a lot of hard work with a lot of people, and if we didn't have the good staff that we have on board, none of this would be able to be achieved. It can't be done with just one person, so it's a help from everybody.
Under your
leader
care.
at the helm.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
So, and I thank everybody that has helped as well, and all the employees, because they're all doing a great job. In the absence of a full-time town manager and me as interim, I couldn't ask for any better staff.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Should be proud of them all.
On that note, any other comments or?
So I would like to recognize somebody else around this table who was nominated by our state representative, Christina Minicucci, for an award, and actually a distinguished award, where on June 18th, Lori Burzloff is being recognized by the Mass Commission on Status of Women as an unsung heroine for all the work that she does in our community, both as a member of our town staff, but also as really a relentless volunteer in far too many things. And so with that, Lori, sometimes the person behind the curtain gets to be yanked out and embarrassed. And so, in front of the entire audience here today,
Yes.
congratulations.
We were hoping we could give you that congratulations.
Yeah, that's great.
well-deserved
Yes,
glory.
absolutely.
You know, all that work with the fires too. You worked long, long hours, making sure people got cards and everything else.
Any other comments or updates?
Graduation Friday, bunch of seniors are going to get their diploma, so congratulations to them. And we hope the ones that are 18 show up to town meeting.
Yeah.
Is there opportunity?
And don't we have a birthday too for someone in there?
Ah,
Yeah.
yes. Happy birthday.
Speak of singing praises.
Happy birthday.
A whopping. Oh, that's what wakes Paul up right there. Well, you can sing if you want. You can help.
Are you legal drinking age yet?
Next year, Paul, you can take me out for a drink. It'll be great.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, is that why the cider joke? Is that what that was?
I've known Phil since before he was legal drinking age, so I can always ask him every year when he actually gets that.
Closer. I'm getting closer.
All right, this agenda says that our next meeting is June 24th, but we're obviously meeting for the special town meeting, and then the June 24th meeting is our interviews for
And we
the,
have the
Our
June
June
10th.
meeting on the 10th, just to sign the bonds.
we'll have a very short meeting on the 10th for the bonds,
That's
yes, so.
Are we
Please
going to
remind
meet before the town meeting as we usually do?
Yes, we will meet before the special town meeting, right, to vote our recommendations, but I think it could be a short meeting. Or, I mean, we can do it in half an hour.
Please.
On the
6:30.
bonds? Yeah, the whole time is the reading.
Unless anything else gets added.
Six, just in case it goes
Yes.
longer. No, town moderator wants you in your seats at 7 o'clock.
6:15.
Yeah.
You want to do 6:15?
Well, let's see if anything else gets added to the agenda sometimes. Maybe a licensing thing might get thrown in there or whatever.
Yeah, we're trying not
As we've discussed, June 18th is a busy day, and if somebody's caught in traffic,
That's right,
nobody wants to be late to the
exactly.
meeting.
6:15.
Yeah,
Okay.
6:15. Okay.
We promise to
And
be
nothing
prompt.
else on the agenda.
All right,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.